Morning. Uh, Welcome to the Virginia Board of Education meeting, as I like to say, the hardest working unpaid board in the Commonwealth. We are delighted to have everybody here with us today. Before we start, though, I'd like to, a couple of technical issues. One is that Dr. Davis Vaught may be participating remotely from Bristol, Virginia due to a medical condition. In accordance with our bylaws, I've approved that participation. Second, a little bit of a joyous day for us today. You may note that we have a new face on the dais. Lisa Coons, Dr. Lisa Coons, has agreed to become the Superintendent of Public Instruction for Virginia. She has been here just a short time, so we're not going to ask her to list all of her plans. But I can say, as we talked a little bit about yesterday, how delighted I am personally, and the board is, personally and professionally, because it is clear that Dr. Coons has a firm grasp on education systems, and I believe that she will really help move the Commonwealth forward. With that, Dr. Coons, you are welcome to make a few remarks, and if you want to introduce your chief of staff at the same time, that would be great too.
I would love to and be honored to have my chief of staff come over here so I can introduce him. I think he's a familiar face in Virginia. Dr. Raley, former superintendent from Goochland County Schools. I'm very excited to have him as our new chief of staff. He has been a wonderful shoulder partner as I'm getting to know Virginia, and a true Virginian and expert in instruction. So I'm excited for us to work together. So I'm very excited.
Thank you. Morning.
I just want to start by saying a thank you to all the school divisions. They have been incredibly welcoming. We had a superintendent's call last Friday and had some great conversation with superintendents across the state. So very excited to talk with them, and had the opportunity to start my week at New Kent High School and honor our Regional Teacher of the Year for Region 1. So it was exciting to see students in action in post-secondary classrooms, in elementary schools, and in reading at New Kent Elementary School. And it was clear that there is a dedication for children and the education of children by our communities. And I was really excited to be a part of that on Monday. Yesterday, I had the opportunity to watch this school board work very hard. It is clear that they are thoughtful, dedicated, and had a great deal of deliberation around our history, social science standards. And I'm incredibly excited to work alongside of them and think thoughtfully and intentionally and collectively on how we work forward for students. I believe they are truly representative of the communities they serve, and I'm honored to work with them. But I want to do one more highlight. I have had the opportunity to work with the Virginia Department of Education staff over the past 4 days, and I have never seen a staff that works so tirelessly, that works towards excellence, and is truly dedicated to the children of Virginia. So I am so excited to serve together and along with the staff that has been here at the Virginia Department of Education. After today, I'm hopeful that we get to train and support our great educators on the new history social science standards, but we also have to make sure that there is a high quality teacher in every classroom across Virginia. So I'm dedicated to work with our department and with our school divisions to improve our turnaround on licensure and to find great pathways to ensure that we have a high quality teacher in every classroom. I also think it's incredibly important to honor John Augenbaugh and our conversation that we had on Monday as Regional Teacher of the Year. He said, don't forget the CTE teachers. We have great programs in this state and great opportunities to bring educators to the CTE workforce, but that's one of the harder to staff areas, and encouraged us to continue to think about that. Was really honored to see the rigorous work by this school board around academic content standards, and we have a lot to do around that to make sure our accreditation, our standards, and our assessments are the best in the nation, and I'm excited to work with all stakeholders on that work. We have to ensure that our parents are partners. A lot of people say that, but we have to empower our parents with transparent knowledge about their children, give them the skills and resources to be successful. So I'm really looking forward to engaging with the parent community. It's one of the highlights of my work in Tennessee, and I'm excited to work side by side with our parents in Virginia. And last but not least, we have to prepare the workforce of tomorrow. We may be the K-12 education system, but we have to provide post-secondary pathways and options for our students. If we have rigorous academic standards, that sets our students up for unique, innovative, and creative pathways to ensure that they can reach their goals. So I'm excited to work and focus on creating post-secondary pathways that are innovative and that are the models that the country looks forward to looking at Virginia. Thank you so much.
Thank you very much. And again, welcome. All right, we will have the moment of silence followed by the Pledge of Allegiance.
To the flag of the United States of America, and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Okay, is there a motion to either approve or amend the minutes from the March 22 and 23 meetings of the board?
I'll move the motion.
Thank you. Is there a second? Thank you. All in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Okay, that carries. All right, public comment. Speakers will be recognized in the order in which their request was received. Speakers are asked to limit their remarks to 3 minutes. When your time is up, please close your remarks promptly. We ask that you provide your name and affiliation at the beginning of your remarks. Speakers may provide copies of their comments. You may email a copy of your remarks to Jim Chapman, Interim Director of Board Relations, after you finish speaking. I will note that an awful lot of folks are here to speak about the history standards. I hope that the speakers recognize that the board spent give or take 6 hours yesterday going through the standards. And I hope that what you're speaking to is sort of the latest iteration of the standards and not, let's say, the last August iteration. So with that in mind, we'll call essentially 2 at once so that people are ready. First is Dr. James Fetterman, followed by Dr. Scott Brabrand. I didn't actually see Dr. Fetterman before. Is he here? No. Okay. Scott, followed by Tony Huang.
Good morning, everyone. I'm Scott Brabrand, Executive Director for VASS. First of all, VASS wants to congratulate Dr. Lisa Coons on her appointment as Virginia's now new State Superintendent. We are also excited to see Dr. Jeremy Raley, former Superintendent of Goochland County, selected as the new Chief of Staff. All of Virginia's superintendents had a positive welcoming meeting with Dr. Coons last Friday, and we look forward to extensive collaboration and communication moving forward. Today, VASS wants to strongly reiterate our support for the VDOE recommendation to suspend chronic absenteeism for this year's accreditation framework due to the high impact of COVID, RSV, and flu this particular school year. Moving forward, we recognize solving chronic absenteeism requires comprehensive community, parent, and school engagement. And we are willing to work with Dr. Coons and with all of you on the necessary policy tools and resources to truly comprehensively address this issue. More can and should be done at the state level to help school divisions truly tackle this problem. We also want to share today our qualified support for VDOE's recommendation to show growth in this year's SOL accreditation process by using spring to spring SOL testing only. Our qualified support is for this year only. VASS respectfully requests that VDOE have a defined plan by the end of this summer to utilize fall to spring SOL growth for this next school year. That is in alignment with best instructional practice, and it is in alignment with the intent of the General Assembly statutory requirement to administer fall and winter SOL assessments as we did this year. We administered them And now we're hearing at the 11th hour, they can't count for growth. We can, and working together, we can do better and have a plan in place so that those assessments count for growth next year. I just also want to make a quick reference. I see talking about a high quality teacher. We couldn't agree more. We want to work with you on the teacher shortage. I see you have some alternative licensure plans before you today. And we also worked at VAST to work with the VRS to reduce the break-in service from 12 months to 6 months. And we'll be working with VRS to have a webinar for superintendents on that new flexibility this June. In this time of transition, we reaffirm our commitment to collaborate with the new state superintendent and with all of you to provide the best public education possible and maximize the potential of every child. Have a great day today.
Thank you. Tony Huang, followed by Candace Lucas. Ms. Lucas, followed by Ann Tatus.
Good morning, board members, and welcome, Superintendent Coons. I look forward to working with you to hopefully restore civil rights back to our students with disabilities in Virginia. I'm interested to see how you will address the issue that Virginia is the only state right now that's still on punishment with OSAP because we violate the civil rights of students with disabilities. And hello to you, Mr. Raley. I met you when you refused to meet with me and speak to our Black grandmother who was fighting for the civil rights of her child. And I believe you were the one that suspended her or expelled her from the school division for bringing a counselor to help her two little grandchildren who suffered from trauma as a result of seeing their mother murdered. So it's interesting that you're promoted after you've harmed so many families in Goochland, but that's another story. There's a couple of things I want to raise. First of all, I am a licensed educator and administrator, been licensed since 2002. Oh, and I forgot, Mr. Sturdivant, welcome. I didn't have the opportunity to welcome you last meeting, so welcome to the board. I am a licensed educator administrator. I've been licensed since 2002, taught in public school, private school, correctional education, have supervised educators, served as a mentor for ODU for special educators. So I know special education. Special education is a civil rights law. My ancestors know what civil rights are. They know what they are. In Virginia, we routinely violate civil rights law as standard operating procedure through the big law, big ed retaliation triangle, which Mr. Raley clearly took advantage of and took part in working with the Sands Anderson law firm. The Sands Anderson law firm is practicing special education without certification. Goochland, Powhatan, Henrico, Chesterfield are all outsourcing special education to unlicensed predatory law firms. And I'm appreciative of you, Mr. Hansen, because you asked the VDOE staff to give you the details regarding the CARES funds and how it was spent. Well, in a majority of the school divisions, CARES funds and improvement monies are being funneled to outsourced attorneys who are illegally practicing special education without certification. So I'm glad you did that, and I can't wait to see it. We pulled all of the budgets. We know it's happening. Specifically in Powhatan, last month, $18,000 went to Sands Anderson under school improvement. Can someone explain to me how paying the shareholders in Sands Anderson improves the quality of education for children in Goochland or Powhatan? If you can, I'd love to hear the answer. Okay, I also wanted to touch base real quick on the lab committee. I believe there are 2 individuals there on the lab committee. I didn't see anyone of color on that committee. That's a problem for me. So you may want to visit that committee. And the last thing I'm going to state is you need to terminate Samantha Hollins. She's not doing her job. She can't even be a building principal on a restricted license. She's messing up the lives of our children.
Ms. Lucas, your time is up.
Okay,
Thank you.
the special education system will not change until she's gone. Thank you.
Ms. Tatus, followed by Emily Klein.
Starting out, I'm going to let the ACLU at the JCAR hearing speak for themselves regarding the transgender model policy.
The model policies need to be limited to what was directed by the General Assembly.
Period. So what the model policy said did not remove parental rights. The model policies had nothing to do with co-ed unisex bathrooms. So here we sit 15 months post day one with hundreds of thousands of parents with their 14th Amendment due process parental rights removed. It's not up for debate. I have a list ready to go to a grand jury, a special grand jury, removing Jason Miyares with every single person that adopted that, because the General Assembly did not do that. You can't remove parental rights, period. It's not up to you. It's not up for debate. So, Ms. Coons, welcome, but I'm letting you know that you've walked into a dumpster fire. So whatever propaganda has been spewed across the nation about we need to do what Virginia's doing, you can light gasoline, put that on fire, because that's a lie. Governor Youngkin ran on special education. You're now being handed what James Lane, who's now sitting at the right hand of Miguel Cardona, speaking of Goochland over here. Then he went through Chesterfield, plowed through like Katrina through New Orleans. That's what he did. Then he came here and did the same thing. And now Belo, she got reprimanded by his office, and now you're going to inherit that. That's the one thing on your list of things that your priorities, workforce, not one. Our children are not cogs in a machine. Okay. So your list needs to be special education children.
Yes.
Your list needs to be restoring the rights of parents. And you talk about parental transparency. I wrote a bill called Transparency in Education. Do you know how much law that nobody's following? That would be all of it. And I'm sure you have not received your letter from Ghazala Hashmi in the Senate Sub-Ed Committee, because they didn't want anything to do with this, because the VSBA said, we're 100% following that. No, they're not. No, they're not. Counselors are not doing their jobs. Counselors can't do anything without parents. They laughed and said, what are we supposed to notify parents every time yes, you are. By Virginia law, you are. I will not violate the Constitution of the United States. I will not violate the what? Constitution of Virginia. Every single school board in this division, every single board of supervisors, every single person on this committee, the governor, Jason Miyares, Winsome Sears, every senator, everybody's violating the Constitution, their oath of office. Everybody on both sides of the aisle. Why do you think I had a Uni-Party shirt on last week? It's because nobody actually cares about these children. You care about a workforce, building a workforce. Children's jobs are not to build a workforce for a future economy. Governor Youngkin. I am so tired. I ran my butt off to get him elected. And I would like to return him, because not one thing he promised has been delivered, is what the conservatives and Republicans need to understand. Not one single thing. Make your list. What was promised, what was delivered? Nothing. Absolutely nothing. And so, Ms. Coons, I live in Chesterfield, the dumpster fire that nobody talks about. And I'm the vice president of Virginians for Children First. All children are losing. Ms. Schultz, everybody here can find me and have an actual zero partisan. Thank you. When you uphold your code of ethics, I'll uphold my code of my time constraint.
Well, this is your time constraint.
Okay, then how about you uphold your code of ethics, and while you're on this board, not join any committees forced to your propaganda. Thank you.
Emily Klein, followed by Kathy Halverson.
Staff parents have stopped coming, by the way.
Kathy Halverson either? No.
Nope.
Okay. Chad Stewart, followed by Krista Barton Arnold.
I think Dr. Fetterman from BCA would like to
Okay,
speak.
thank you.
In lieu of Chad Stewart.
Good morning, everyone.
Good morning.
All right. Thank you for the opportunity to speak this morning. I am Dr. James J. Fetterman, the proud president of the Virginia Education Association. I stand here today representing more than 40,000 VEA educators and the students we serve. I, too, am very disappointed that the board has chosen to ignore educators, parents, and community leaders of Virginia who were almost unanimous in their opposition to these standards. And while it is significantly improved, the version that was presented last year, it is still deeply flawed and frankly, embarrassing. It's an embarrassing set of standards. However, If the board is set on adopting these standards and there's nothing I can say to convince you otherwise, then I encourage you to do so as quickly as possible. Teachers and their classrooms are not blank slates where you can just add infinite new responsibilities and learning standards and expect the same level of rigor. Curriculum planners need time to incorporate these new requirements. Textbook publishers need to significantly revise copies, and administrators need to know so that they can study and understand the changes so that they can assist their teachers. And classroom educators need to adapt their lesson plans accordingly. But none of these actions can start until you finalize these standards. Whether we're Black or white, Latino or Asian, Native or newcomers, we all want our kids to have an education that encourages them to dig deeper into who they are, where we came from, and where we're capable of going and who we can become. And as educators, we know that our students must have the tools and guidance and honestly face and understand our past and present in order to create a better future. And while these standards are far from perfect, they're a starting place. On a personal note, I would like to express how deeply disappointed I am in the final results of this process. As a Black man, as an educator, as a parent, these standards fail at every level. And while you can try to whitewash history, you can never whitewash me. Our students are too smart and our teachers are too observant. They are on to you. They're paying attention and they will be here long after this board is done. This will remain an unpleasant memory for all of us, but we're all resilient and we will get through. I urge you to complete this process that was started more than a year ago so that educators can properly prepare to teach and that our students can properly prepare to learn. VEA is committed to working with educators, parents, and community leaders to ensure the implementation of these standards do not completely upend the education we provide to our students, who must remain our focus and not your political agenda. Thank you.
Once again, it's Chad Stewart here, Krista Barton Arnold, followed by Jacob Downs.
Good morning. Good morning, board members. Good morning, Dr. Coons. I'm Krista Arnold. I'm the Executive Director of the Virginia Association of Elementary and Middle School Principals. The VA ESP would like to welcome Dr. Coons. We look forward to working collaboratively with you, with your staff, to provide an outstanding education for all the children in Virginia. The VA ESP would like to express our support for the Department of Education's recommendation to suspend chronic absenteeism for this year's accreditation framework. As a former elementary principal of a Title I school, I would like to share with you some of my experiences. Chronic absenteeism is not new. It's not a new challenge. It has been amplified by the global pandemic, which is a major influence on school attendance. When I was a principal, we had many students whose parents went to work early, and we had very young children who had to get themselves up and dressed, and sometimes their siblings up. We had trained these students that on the occasion when they missed the bus, which happened more often than you might expect, when they missed the bus, to call the school. At that point, I looked around for a staff member who could possibly go and pick up the child. Most often, I would send my security officer to go pick up the child. That would leave my school without security for 30 to 45 minutes while they went and picked up the child or children. This is obviously a decision I would make differently now, given our current situation. So who would I turn to? The guidance counselors who are helping our students with mental health, teachers who are providing direct instruction. I did not have the staff to overcome this barrier. The VA ESP wholeheartedly agrees chronic absenteeism is a complex issue that has long-term impact on student achievement. We want to be part of the solution. We look forward to working with Dr. Coons and her staff to help develop those solutions. Until such a time, please suspend chronic absenteeism from this year's accreditation framework. Thank you.
Okay, Jacob Downs.
Good morning.
Good morning.
Give me one moment.
Sure.
Sorry, I'm short. So I had a little speech going on here, but I think I'm going to just kind of improv this part now because I've heard some other people speak on this bill and on this education legislation and whatnot. And as a student in this, I went to South County High School out in Lorton, Fairfax area, and I have 2 cousins in the school system as well, and I have some family members that are teachers too. I've read some of the parts of this education bill, and I've read some of the things that Youngkin and his administration want to put through, and I think it's very important that we bring that diversity to education. So he wants to improve local and state monuments and, educate students on that kind of stuff, educate students on our leaders in the civil rights movements, and whether it be our history as a whole or just as a state, improving that kind of stuff is really key. And I see that for my little cousins. I look at them, I want them to go through a system that will help them become smarter, learn more and succeed. And unfortunately, dumbing down our education system is not going to do that. I think we need to push through standards and policies that will help all students. It's not a one size fits all issue, but it's certainly one that where if we dumb it down for one student and not all students, it's not going to benefit others, right? So for me, at least, going through now college at George Mason University, I've learned that when we have those diverse thoughts and those diverse opinions and those new learning centers and all that, we can expand. Our minds can just grow through lengths that we didn't see possible, honestly. I mean, college has just been a great experience for me. And I got lucky going to South County as well because it's a great school, great teachers. But I fear that if we start pulling out and putting in pieces that we pick and choose, we go down a dark path, a path that's not going to be recoverable. And I pray honestly that my cousins and everyone else here with kids and a stake into the education system can just have that safe and that guaranteed strong education. And I hope that you guys, the board members here, can do that and really help us push through the policies that Youngkin has stood for and advocated for. So thank you guys. I appreciate it.
Thank you. Michael Murphy, followed by Ali Motameti.
Good morning. Hello. My name is Michael Murphy, and I'm from Falls Church, Virginia. I've been in the Virginia public school system from kindergarten up through high school, and now I attend a state school, George Mason University. The new standards of learning the new standards of learning include an increased emphasis on the significance of state and national symbols that honor and foster patriotism. And this is something that specifically me, I felt was lacking in my original K through 12 education. And I found my own time to learn about these things. And Virginia is a beautiful state and the home of many historical places that have shaped our nation's history, not only our states, such as famous presidents' homes. We have Monticello, Mount Vernon, Montpelier. And the new standards also incorporate an increased coverage of Federalist Paper number 10 and 51 that highlight the importance of unbiased press and the importance of free enterprise to democracy. As students, we are capable of meeting these new rigorous standards, and the students of Virginia are smart and capable, and the new standards will foster greater education in Virginia. So thank you.
Help me with pronunciation, followed by James Lee.
Good morning, all. My name is Ali Motamedi. I'm a resident of Fairfax, Virginia, and a first year at George Mason University. I'm here to speak in favor of Governor Youngkin's proposed standards. The 2 primary benefits that I see as part of these standards are the following. Let me begin by affirming that I believe that these standards would greatly elevate the quality of education being provided at Virginia public schools. I don't think it's any secret that there is a gap between private educational attainments and public educational attainments, and that it is the obligation of the public education system to ensure that we have a more equitable education system in the Commonwealth of Virginia, and that we ensure that all children, regardless of their socioeconomic status, are provided with the educational opportunities necessary to thrive in the labor pool upon graduation. I believe that these standards will imbue students with the critical thinking, analytical, and problem-solving skills necessary to compete in the modern dynamic economy, regardless of their socioeconomic status, race, gender, or sexual orientation. We cannot let our students lag behind those in other states. Virginia should be a model of educational attainment for the rest of the nation. Moreover, I think it's also important that we acknowledge that these standards would help foster a more civic-minded population. The public education system has an obligation to not only educate a qualified workforce, but also a well-educated base of voters. I believe that these standards will enable people to think critically about policies, proposals, and legislators, and whether or not they will advance their interests. These standards will produce a more civic-minded and better educated voter in the Commonwealth of Virginia and the United States as a whole. In summary, these standards would not only produce positive economic outcomes for all Virginians, but positive civic outcomes that will serve to enrich our communities, our Commonwealth, and our country. These standards are a shining example of the common sense of leadership from the Youngkin administration and represent a willingness from the governor to work towards a more prosperous, just, and equitable Virginia. It is my view that all Virginians, regardless of their socioeconomic status, political affiliation, race, gender, or sexual orientation, should rally behind these standards as a means of empowering Virginian children of all stripes and colors. Thank you, God bless you, and God bless the Commonwealth.
All right, James Lee, followed by Elisa Minok.
Hello, my name is James Lee. I'm a senior at George Mason University, and I'm pursuing my bachelor's in science with a concentration in accounting. The role of our government is to protect and inform its citizens. History is a critical element in the formation of our youth. For this reason, it falls to our schools to give students the information on how history has unwound over the years. With this, it is important that our populace understand how certain economic models driven by ideologies such as communism and socialism are detrimental to our democratic republic. For this reason, the new education standards will educate our youth on how to understand the repercussions of different types of political thought. Thank you.
Good morning, followed by Philip Dotson.
Good morning. My name is Elisa Minok, and I'm a second year at George Mason University. I'm here in support of Governor Youngkin's standards of learning because Governor Youngkin directed the state board to create best-in-nation history and social science standards, which teach all history, the good and the bad, and prepare every graduate to be an informed member of our Commonwealth and our communities. Thank you for your time.
Philip Dotson, followed by Jerome Fleming.
Good morning. My name is Philip Dotson, and I'm from Manassas, Virginia. I'm a graduate student at George Mason University. The proposed standards of learning will critically bolster civics and history education in our K-12 schools. It is important that the good, the bad, and the ugly of history are all taught. Those who forget the past are doomed to repeat it. And the only way to learn from the past, the mistakes, and the triumphs is to learn it all. By providing a more robust coverage of civics, acknowledging the impact of religion on our world's history, and incorporating input from a wide variety of diverse sources, including numerous different Virginia museums, historical institutions, and cultural organizations, the proposed SOLs enable a tremendous step towards a more informed and better educated populace. Thank you for your time.
Okay, Jerome Fleming and Fida Hawk. Jerome Fleming. Okay, and Fida Hawk or Hake. You're gonna have to start giving me a pronunciation guide sooner or later. Laura Hanford.
Good morning. My name is Laura Hanford, and I'm a mother of 5 from Fairfax County. I'd like to express my strongest support for the model transgender policies that Governor Youngkin has implemented to protect children in our schools by supporting parents of all parties and backgrounds. I work with parents from all over the country to protect children, and these range from lifelong Democrats to libertarians to Republicans, and from atheists to Christians to Jews to Muslims. What do we all have in common? We love our kids fiercely, and we're not only tasked by law with their welfare, but far beyond any other actor in their lives, we have their best interests at heart. We're the ones who are there for them, day in, day out, night and day, Not for a few hours every week, but for all the times they're sick or hurting or feel like their life is falling apart. Not for 180 days of a school year, but for 365 days every year. And yet, in the last several years, we've seen the critical role of parents in their children's lives undermined by a wave of radical activists across the US who prize the imposition of their ideology above the welfare of our children. These activists have upended the healthy partnership of schools and families by promoting the nonsense that parents are the enemy while activists in schools are safe. I've seen this on my own Fairfax County Public Schools, including during more than 3 years of service on the Family Life Education Committee. And we saw it statewide in the transgender policies promulgated by Governor Northam. Policies that were based on misleading claims by activist groups and small activist medical committees claiming, falsely, to speak for the whole of the medical establishment. School personnel, by law, are already mandated reporters with statutory obligation to report suspected abuse. But the very fact that a foundational concept of the Northam policy was to keep secrets from parents should have prevented it from ever being put into place. The Northam policy mandating secrecy about gender transition at the request of the child was based on the absurd presumption of parental abuse. It wildly overstepped current law by dictating that in this one area, kids were in essence to be treated as legally emancipated and able as minors to make life-altering decisions. This despite the fact that schools have neither the legal authority nor the expertise to make life-altering medical decisions for children. And we now know that social transition is not just benign, it's a profound psychosocial intervention in and of itself that can concretize gender dysphoria, which can set a child on a path of lifelong medicalization. The best treatment for gender dysphoria is a complex subject of debate, especially since the majority of children presenting as trans have psychological comorbidities. If gender is pulled out as the sole factor, it can worsen transition. In any case, all the evidence is against parents being excluded from this because it's a vital decision about their own child's mental health, and every single country which has done a systematic review of the evidence has concluded that rushing children to gender transition.
Your time is up. I'm
Okay.
sorry. Thank you.
That rushing children to gender transition goes against the evidence base, which is required by the law. Thank you for your time.
Okay, Angela Gross, followed by Tony Childress. Angela Gross. Tony Childress. Good morning.
Good morning, President Gecker, Superintendent Coons, and members of the board. I am here today to speak in support of the iTeach Alternative Licensure Program. Again, my name is Angela Gross. I am the Director of Human Resources for Essex County Public Schools. I'm also a former teacher and former school administrator with 27 years of experience in Virginia Public Schools. Over these 27 years, many things have changed. I think it's safe to say that 2015, 10 years ago, we would never have imagined the current teacher shortage. I work in a rural, high poverty, majority minority, Title I school division. I love the students where I work. They deserve the best teachers. I have served as Director of Human Resources for the past 3 years. We've had to become extremely creative in filling our teaching positions with the best candidates for our students. Often these candidates hold bachelor's degrees and are content experts who are eligible for provisional licenses. We are now functioning with more than 25% of teachers under provisional licenses. Once hired, these novice teachers are learning on the job and receiving intensive school division level professional development provided by Essex. The stress on these teachers is large as they work to adjust to a new profession without previous training. They have tremendous potential, but many fall behind on coursework due to the intense work involved with their new job, instructional demands, and a high level of training provided by the school division. We're located over an hour from the nearest four-year college or university. This results in a barrier to the completion completion of required licensure courses. Our provisional teachers must rely on online courses for this reason because driving 2 hours a day to attend courses is not feasible. It is also difficult to create a college cohort partnership because we are small and the courses needed by our provisionally licensed teacher vary greatly, and again, we are geographically isolated. I'm asking you to support iTeach as an alternative route to licensure. This would be a game changer for us and similar school divisions. It would allow teachers to work at their own pace so that they can use their breaks and summers off to catch up. For example, it's very hard for teachers to keep up with their coursework when they're busy preparing students for SOL testing. We have several teachers who fell behind in coursework during COVID-19. iTeach would give them the opportunity to catch up, complete their licensure requirements, and keep their jobs. I had to tell 2 people they may not have jobs next year this week because their provisionals will run out and they cannot be extended. Please help support small, geographically isolated school divisions. Allow us to have as many tools as possible to assist provisionally licensed teachers in completing teaching licensure requirements. This nationally accredited program is working in other states and can work in Virginia too. Please consider supporting the iTeach alternative program to licensure. Again, I'm Angela Gross from Essex County Public Schools. Thank you.
Thank you. Tony Childress, followed by Cardell Patillo.
Good morning, board members, and welcome, Dr. Coons. My name is Dr. Tony Childress from Charles City County Public Schools, located in Charles City, County, Virginia. I started teaching high school English in 1996 and felt lucky to have landed a teaching position. Back in the mid-90s, English teachers were a dime a dozen, and I was one of many applicants for that one position. Elementary was even more competitive in the mid-90s. As a principal, I had several applicants to choose from to fill vacancies at my high school. This narrative, as you all well know, has drastically shifted over the past several years, with these last 3 years being the most difficult for our division. Currently, I'm the HR department, who has substituted along with our central office directors and superintendent as an elementary teacher, elementary principal, high school teacher, and high school principal due to lack of personnel. In a small division, it's all hands on deck. Charles City County Public Schools is a small rural Title I school division serving almost 550 students in one elementary and one high school. Our total number of teaching positions include 25 teachers at our elementary school and 27 teachers at our high school for a division total of 52. Currently, our elementary school has 4 vacancies. 4 vacancies does not sound like a large number to many larger schools, so let's put that into perspective. With 4 vacancies in our one elementary school, that's close to 16% vacant positions. At the beginning of this school year, we had 8 vacancies, or 32% unfilled positions. We were fortunate enough to find 4 licensed teachers in October and November. Our high school has a total of 27 teaching positions. 20 are filled, leaving 7 vacancies. This leaves the high school with about 26% of the total positions left vacant. Again, we work as a team to fill the needs when we do not have adequate coverage. Additionally, we're having to teach classes virtually. Of the 52 teachers in our division, we have 5 that are provisionally licensed who want to remain in our division, who love our students, who love our schools. Our story is no different than neighboring divisions. We have a shortage of teachers. What is different for our division is that Charles City County is about 30 minutes away from much larger divisions, and that their starting pay is roughly 10 grand more than what we can offer. And we simply cannot compete. We continue to fill vacancies from 2022-23 school year while also trying to fill newly created vacancies and then recruit for the upcoming school year. What we do have in the pipeline, we have college graduates interested who want to apply who want to be teachers and apply to our division. iTeach can support these people who want to be.
Thank you.
Oh, I'm sorry. Please support iTeach. I missed my best part.
Good morning. You'll be followed by Andrew Roselle.
Good morning. President Gecker, Vice President Mann, members of the Virginia Board of Education, and Dr. Coons. I am Dr. Cardell Patillo. It is my honor to address you today as the President-elect of the Virginia School Boards Association. I would like to extend a warm welcome to Dr. Coons on behalf of VSBA, and we look forward to working with you as our new State Superintendent of Public Instruction. The issue I would like to discuss today is the alarming teacher shortages that our school divisions are facing in the Commonwealth, both pre- and post-pandemic. VSBA applauds the efforts taken by Governor Youngkin's administration, the General Assembly, and this board to seek policies that will assist in alleviating this issue. We are pleased with the return to work legislation that was passed, reducing the break for retirees to begin teaching again from 12 to 6 months. This measure will help our divisions to have qualified teachers in the classroom. However, we recognize the return of work legislation alone will not solve the teacher shortage problem. Recent reports have shown that qualified candidates wishing to teach in Virginia's public schools are waiting up to 6 months to have their licensure applications processed. The Richmond Times-Dispatch cited that this delay has been frustrating for potential teacher candidates and has led them to seek teaching positions in other settings outside of Virginia's public schools. It is our collective responsibility as state and local leaders to guarantee that every student has a qualified teacher in their classroom. Therefore, VSBA encourages the State Department of Education to evaluate and address the licensure process to accelerate the time between application submission and granting of a license. We believe that by streamlining this application process and developing strategies to recruit teachers to Virginia, we can address this issue. While we understand the challenges the department has faced in the licensure process in recent years, we must work together to fix this problem. VSBA is ready to partner with you in this endeavor and assist the department in finding solutions. We are committed to ensuring that Virginia schools have qualified and dedicated teachers to educate our students. In conclusion, I appreciate the opportunity to speak with you today and wish you a productive April meeting of this board. Thank you.
Thank you. Mr. Patil. All right, Andrew Roselle, followed by Michael Karabinos.
Good morning, board members. Good morning, Dr. Coons. My name is Andrew Roselle, and I have the privilege of serving as president of iTeach. And I'm here speaking on item K this morning. I am a certified high school math teacher, and I'm a current doctoral candidate at a university here in Virginia. I began working at iTeach and in teacher preparation 17 years ago. In 2021, I assumed the role of president when my mother, Dr. Huber, who's here, was able to step away from the day-to-day operations. Our home office is in Charlottesville. We have several team members that live in Virginia and office from our Charlottesville office. This includes, for instance, our chief academic officer, Dr. Wendy Amato, who also is a professor at UVA. iTeach was founded by Dr. Huber, my mom, 20 years ago. Though a multi-state operation was never the original plan, we have grown to serve other states primarily at the request of stakeholders, both district leaders and state leaders. We train teachers in 11 states with several applications currently being reviewed by departments of ed across the country. We earned approval from each state's DOE through a process nearly identical to the process we're walking through today, though in many cases our approval was bifurcated into two governing bodies, one for programmatic design and another specifically for our coursework quality and rigor. The foundation of our program offering is to provide high quality teaching while also reducing the barriers to earning a licensure, namely cost, time, and location. We are seeking approval today to become an option for individuals who already hold a degree to earn their licenses. We believe the conditions added to our application are not in line with one of the board's stated goals and priority number 2. The specific courses articulated in the conditions are already embedded in much of our CAPE accredited courses and are certainly included in our robust catalog of methodology courses, including literacy courses aligned to the VLA competencies. The courses have been reviewed by 3 accredited institutions of higher ed, and those 3 institutions also award graduate level credit to all of our teacher candidates upon completion. These rigorous courses have also been scrutinized and approved in 11 states. In fact, the Nevada Department of Ed recently changed its rules to allow our coursework to be individually completed by current educators seeking to complete licensure renewal requirements. This distinction was most recently closed to non-IHE organizations. Also, the Louisiana Department of Education has approved our literacy coursework to satisfy their 9 credit hour requirement of teaching reading. We are confident in the content and quality of our application and of our program. We are proud to have helped over 20,000 individuals find fulfilling careers in education. Most recently, one of our teachers was awarded the New Teacher of the Year in Clark County, Nevada, the 5th largest school district in our nation. We are seeking to earn the approval of our submitted application with no additional conditions placed so that we can partner with the efforts of the department, the board, and our division partners to achieve our mutual goal: provide every student with a highly effective, well-trained teacher. I appreciate your hard work as board members, and I trust that we will be great partners in addressing the teacher shortage crisis. Thank you.
Michael Carabinos, followed by Diane Huber.
Good morning. I'm also from Chesterfield, and it's rare that I agree with Ms. Tatus on anything, but she is absolutely right. We should be teaching citizens, not cogs for a machine. Now, everyone's talking about history. I want to talk about a little math, elementary math. Greater than and less than. 42, 220. Which number is greater? Which number is less? In the public comment sessions held all over the state, across multiple communities, there were only 42 comments in favor of the social studies standards, while 220 people came to speak against them, some of them traveling for hours to do so. The standards the board is working on today have already been overwhelmingly rejected by the state of Virginia. You spent 6 hours yesterday painting a sunken ship. We had a perfectly serviceable vessel in August. And I'm sorry, Mr. Gecker, I know you said not to go back to August, but August was the last save point of a known good configuration. I work in IT. Known good configurations, what you roll back to when you have a failed system. Now, all over this state, all over this country, we have lost trust in our institutions. People don't trust our courts to be nonpartisan. People don't trust Congress to do the business of the people. But this board and a new superintendent has an opportunity here today to show that they are independent and worthy of the trust of the people of Virginia. And you must ask yourselves, are you the Virginia Department of Education, or are you the governor's Department of Indoctrination? You must ask yourself, who do you serve? Who do you want to look in the eye at the end of the day? We have a system put together by Virginia historians, Virginia teachers, Virginia families that worked, put together in a state that is number 7 in the country in education, not a low number like 33. I must say, I am proud to be a Virginian, and one of the reasons I am proud to be a Virginian is because we are educated, we are smart, we are the engine of this nation. I am proud to be a Virginian because Virginia is where the wave of hateful anti-transgender policies in this country stopped, as it rolled up from the South and then manufactured panic created by partisans who decided to attack a small marginalized community because they could find that as a wedge to keep the anger machine going that started with the pandemic and then rolled in with manufactured CRT and then rolled in with the manufactured anti-trans panic. Virginia's where that stopped, and I am proud of that fact. So, is that my time or is that just a fun?
That's your time.
Okay.
Thank you.
Thank you. Prove yourselves.
All right, Diane Huber, followed by Paige Tucker.
Good morning, Mr. President, Superintendent, and board members. I am Diane Huber. I'm the founder of iTeach, and I'm here speaking on item K. While I was serving as the director of student teaching at a large state university, I saw that we were failing to meet the needs of our college students, of our districts, but more importantly, the students in the classroom. With a vision to remove barriers to the teaching profession, I resigned my position at the university and I submitted an application to the Texas Education Agency. In 2003, iTeach was approved as one of the first non-traditional pathways to teacher preparation. As the founder of the company, I wanted to assure all of our participants that they were in a preparation program that was meeting the same standards as colleges of education, both in rigor of field experience and coursework. So when the National Council for the Accreditation of Teacher Educators, NCATE, changed its bylaws in 2007 to allow non-institutions of higher ed to seek accreditation, iTeach was the first and only non-institution of higher ed to seek the national accreditation. iTeach was nationally accredited in 2009, an accolade that we cherish even today under CAPE because it identifies iTeach as a rigorous, high-quality program. And because of the low cost of our program, $3,050. Because of the rigor of our coursework, we have states and representatives of state agencies asking us to come help them. Last week, I was in Indiana visiting with Dr. Rebecca Estes on a project to bring 500 STEM teachers through our coursework. Last month, I was in West Virginia visiting with Dr. Carla Warren, and iTeach has been selected to take 180 identified degreed paraprofessionals through our coursework to certification. But to bring that closer to home, in 2020, Carol Nelson, the president of the Virginia Association of School Personnel Administrators, approached me and said, "Can iTeach come help us?" The answer was no. In 2021, Carol again approached me. I heard her plea and I spent time in my hotel room that night researching regulations that govern teacher preparation in Virginia. The next morning over coffee, I shared with Carol that under Superintendent Memo 291-19, we could indeed work in collaboration. I asked the board to vote in favor of item K with no conditions. Thank you.
Okay, Paige Tucker, followed by Benjamin Miller.
Good morning. My name is Paige Tucker, and I serve as the Director of Talent Acquisition for Arlington Public Schools. Also a former licensure specialist here at the Virginia Department of Education. Arlington Public Schools has consistently been recognized both statewide and nationally as a distinguished school division with both excellent students and dedicated staff. In fact, we were again named the best place to teach in Virginia for the second year in a row. Despite all of our many recognitions and accolades, we, just like every other school division in Virginia and across the country, are still facing challenges filling our teacher vacancies. While my staff worked diligently to staff all of our schools, we still started this year with a number of open vacant positions. Throughout the year, we have struggled to find teachers in critical areas, including both elementary and special education. To fill these gaps, we continue to turn to a number of innovative recruitment methods. Some of these methods include, of course, growing our own programs, such as our wonderful substitute to teacher program and our assistant to teacher program. These programs have been a wonderful opportunity for some of our most dedicated staff members to begin their wonderful journey into teaching, but obviously take time to complete. We also currently have 192 teachers in our division, Arlington, on provisional licenses, and more applications still waiting for approval here at the Virginia Department of Education. Our provisional teachers spend both a great deal of time and money trying to complete the many requirements of them while also juggling the very demanding tasks of being full-time classroom teachers. Another one of our innovative recruitment methods was to submit an application for the Montessori Alternative Licensure Pathway to help recruit and retain teachers at our public Montessori school in Arlington. Thank you for approving this application this past March. This alternative route will now give teachers working in our Montessori schools a provisional license based on satisfying just 3 requirements: the elementary praxis, a Montessori certificate, and a bachelor's degree. Just like the Montessori alternative pathway, I come this morning to ask for your support and ultimately your vote with the adoption of the iTeach program in Virginia. This pathway will give our phenomenal provisional teachers an opportunity to become full-time teachers in a reasonable amount of time and in an affordable manner. It will also considerably expand our applicant pool. This pathway will not only advance Arlington's mission of recruiting and retaining highly qualified teachers, but of course the Board of Education's priority number 2, which is to increase the number of candidates entering the teaching profession and encourage and support the recruitment, development, and retention of well-prepared and skilled teachers and school leaders in our Commonwealth. Thank you.
Thank you. Benjamin Miller, followed by Emily Yin.
Good morning. My name is Benjamin Miller. I'm from Chesterfield, Virginia. I'm a graduating senior at George Mason University. I'd like to talk about the history and civics standards revisions proposed by the Youngkin administration. As a student who graduated from Chesterfield County Schools, I know firsthand the youth of the Commonwealth face a subtle danger: lower education standards and hindered accessibility to fair yet rigorous education. Baltimore's lower standards of education are a prime example of what happens when academic rigor is absent from the curriculum. How can we expect our youth and children to become well-informed citizens if they don't know about the nation they were raised in? While we may have appreciated taking easy A courses at one point or another during our educations, I have come to appreciate the intellect that rigorous courses develop in the mind of a student far more. If we want exceptional Americans, we must have exceptional education standards. General education classes should not lack sufficient rigor. In my experience, Virginia public high schools, this was often the case. General education courses should serve to provide students with exceptional and accessible foundational knowledge so that they have the opportunity to reach far beyond our benchmarks. With the proper counseling, accessibility to knowledge, school resources, and excellent instructions, I'm here to let you know we can handle it. The inclusion of the Federalist Papers, Bill of Rights, and other key U.S. documents and principles in the new curriculums ensures that our students will not only have well-tutored minds, but a comprehensive understanding of the essence of the American spirit that drives our leaders today. A comprehensive understanding that is crucial to the success in the pursuit of life, liberty, and happiness. That's what I figured. Thank you, Siri. I'd like to thank you, and I'd like to thank my high school counselor, Derek Norman. May God bless America and nurture the youth of the Commonwealth.
Okay, Emily Yin, followed by Brendan Gillis.
Hello, my name is Dr. Emily Yen. I'm from the Virginia Education Association. The first thing I would like to do is deliver these 5,181 petitions from folks who signed these in the past week, stating that they want to keep labor history in the curriculum. So these 5,181, sorry, I don't know if this is on.
It's on.
Folks in Virginia feel very strongly about keeping labor history in the curriculum. I want to emphasize that labor history is history. It is Virginia history. Labor history is American history. Labor history is Virginia history. The history of the U.S. labor movement is inextricably linked to the civil rights movement. I was very disappointed that the standards that your board released earlier this year erased labor history. That's absolutely unconscionable. Students deserve to learn where we got overtime pay, the 40-hour work week, workplace safety, and other labor protections. Students who don't understand this will develop an inaccurate worldview. While the recent additions are improvements, this is very inadequate. We would like to have more labor history added to the curriculum, and I hope that you seriously consider the amendments that were submitted to you. There were numerous members of labor unions who, as well as concerned citizens, who showed up to the hearings in March and gave an overwhelming number of comments. And I hope that you pass these standards expeditiously. Thank you very much.
Thank you. Brendan Gillis. Kimberly Hammond. And are there two of you coming at once on this sign-up sheet? Stephanie Houts.
She's with me, but I'm going to speak today.
You're going to do it alone, huh?
Absolutely.
Okay.
Good morning.
Good morning.
Board members, Dr. Coons. My name is Kim Hammond, Newport News Public Schools Training and Development Coordinator in HR. In my role, I connect individuals with pathways to become teachers. This includes pathways, the traditional educational preparation programs, in-person, online, career switchers, residents, and future apprentices. We are fortunate to have fantastic teacher preparation programs. However, they are not graduating enough teachers to meet our needs. Since 2018, we are hiring approximately 150 provisionally licensed teachers. We average a turnover rate of 15%. We lose half of our new hires during their first 3 to 5 years. This is 150 potential openings this fall for teachers who have not completed licensure requirements. They will not be returning to the traditional EPP programs. They have master's degrees, they have BAs, and some have doctorates. They are rich in content and experience. Thank you for allowing and providing alternative routes. We share a common goal, providing the best, highly qualified classroom teachers to every student. iTeach does not circumvent or produce less qualified teachers. It provides a viable option to meet state requirements that is affordable, flexible, and fits full-time teachers' lives. Our provisionally licensed teachers who will benefit from this route are supported by division curriculum and strategy specialists, learning communities, mentors, and coaches. What I am told is that they are so busy doing the job, teaching in our elementary, middle schools, and high schools that they do not have the time and flexibility or money to be able to complete all state licensure requirements. We need as many paths as possible. iTeach is flexible, CAPE accredited, and provides affordable and quality instruction. Let me put two faces to this. Retired military, middle school math teacher, a wealth of experience, fantastic in the classroom. At this point in his life, teaching full-time and returning to a traditional program is not an option. Without iTeach, he will be not with us in the fall in the classroom. A master's degree, English teaching elementary school, not with us in the fall, has a full-time family and not able to complete all requirements. iTeach will give me a viable path for these two. Please help me find a path for them and the other 150 that may not be able to return in the fall. And we have a total of 400-ish this year that could also benefit from this program. Please approve iTeach immediately, removing as many barriers as possible so we can continue to provide quality instruction to all of our students. Thank you.
Okay, Laura Estes, followed by Mo Gaffney.
Good morning, school board members and Dr. Coons. My name is Laura Estes, and I'm with the Prince George County Public Schools. I am a 30-year veteran educator, having been a classroom teacher, a school administrator, a literacy specialist, curriculum leader, and grant writer, and having segued most recently into my current role as Chief Human Resources Officer for Prince George. So not long ago, our superintendent had the opportunity to collaborate with other superintendents across multiple states at a conference. They discussed how their divisions were trying to address the shortage of teachers and learned about the successful implementation of the iTeach alternate path to licensure in other states. She then brought the information back to our HR team, where we had also recently attended a regional Virginia School Personnel Association conference and heard from Diane Huber, founder of iTeach, as a guest speaker. While we have considered other options to create and apply for an internal special provision for division alternate paths to licensure, the iTeach path is most feasible, reasonable, and attainable for us, as opposed to trying to develop something at the division level. While some divisions may be sharing figures that provide an intensive large-scale picture of their vacancies, as a mid-sized or smaller division, we want to highlight the stressful impact that vacancy places on the total environment. The impact is substantial, resulting in larger class sizes with higher teacher-student ratios, use of long-term subs, costs of extra pay for coverage to cover periods caused by unfilled vacancies, a reduction in course offerings at the secondary level, and greater workloads on the remaining staff, loss of planning, lower morale, and lower job satisfaction, all of which add to the number of teachers leaving the profession each year. Recent data presented at a Virginia Association of School Personnel Administrators conference from college representatives indicated that teachers graduating from approved college or university programs primarily returned home to teach or elect to teach in a school division where they student taught or have some other connections. Knowing this trend, that means that iTeach path would allow us to recruit and provide this path to licensure to locally connected community members, as they are the ones who are most interested in returning home to the area or staying in the area because of family in a small division like Prince George. This is evident from our local job fairs, where locally connected young adults walk in and they return from college with a degree in another area, and they wish to seek work opportunities with us in the school system, but they need a path to licensure. These candidates are the ideal ones for us to offer an alternate, affordable, and feasible path to licensure through iTeach, because they do not want or need another degree, but they do want to meet the licensure credentials. In closing, I ask that you please support and approve the alternate path to licensure through iTeach to help us close the gap with our vacancies. Thank you.
Thank you. Dr. Gaffney, followed by Cheryl Binkley. Good morning.
Good morning. I just got a new hip. I'm moving a little slow. Good morning. I'm speaking today on item K on the agenda. Good morning, Mr. Grecker, and welcome, Dr. Coons and board members. My name is Dr. Mo Gaffney, and I'm a native of Charlottesville, Virginia. I am a product of public education here in Virginia, and I am also a graduate from the University of Virginia. I have been an elementary teacher in both Charlottesville City, Albemarle County, and independent schools in Charlottesville. I've also taught education courses at the University of Virginia, where I received my doctorate. And most recently, the past 11 years, I've served as an elementary school principal, where I have firsthand experienced the teacher shortage and how difficult that is. Regionally, currently, I'm the regional director of K-12 Coalition, where I'm an educational consultant working with divisions on solutions to the current education crisis. iTeach is one of our companies that offers a solution to the teacher shortage. Since August, I have met in Virginia with over 50 divisions throughout the state to share about this alternative licensure option. Today, several of them are here that you've heard from to share about their specific needs, and the letters I just passed out are from several who were not able to attend. First of all, I just want to share some interesting research from the University of Virginia that is astounding. In 2011,
16,576 graduates received a license from the universities in Virginia. In 2021, only 8,290 have received a license. That's a 50% decline in our teacher pool. The 22 iTeach division applications before you today have over 2,000 teachers on provisional license. They also have numerous vacancies for the upcoming school year. At least 20 more divisions that I've been talking with, including Loudoun, Prince William, and Stafford, are interested in moving forward with iTeach as soon as it is board approved. Chesterfield, who has an application with us, has recently attended over 24 teacher hiring events and still have a substantial number of vacancies for the fall. They're now planning summer events to hire annual substitutes. Research from Duke University has shown us significant learning loss when children are taught by substitutes as opposed by a licensed teacher. Fairfax and just about every other division has an overwhelming need for elementary and special ed. Divisions, as you have heard, have aides and substitutes who want to become a full-time teacher, but because of cost and time, they are not able to go back to the universities and take those additional courses. These qualified candidates are seeking a license, not another degree. iTeach is cost-effective. It also is more affordable and helps with our equity and diversity. I just want to thank you all for your time and service in Virginia education, and I ask that you approve the application with no conditions, the way that the boards and divisions approved. Thank you.
Sure. Cheryl Binkley, followed by Michael Stemple.
Good morning. Thank you for your service and work. My name is Cheryl Gibbs Binkley. I am a retired teacher of high school students and college students. There's so many problems with Governor Youngkin's lab schools that I hardly know where to start. The first, for the most part, they are illegal. There is no legislative authorization. Both the lab school bills of 2022 and 2023 failed. The administration has gone around the state offering free money to authorizers that are clearly excluded from the budget bill language of 2022. They pursue them anyway and even announce they're opening lab schools immediately to the media even before the local authorizer has filled out an application. There are already complaints filed with the state auditor about misappropriation of funds. Second, lab schools are unconstitutional. The standing committee structure and independent regional boards defy the requirement that local districts control the curriculum of Virginia's public schools. Third, many of the lab schools planned are not full schools at all, but are limited after-school programs or scholarship programs that and for the most part, already exist and are made available to students. But the lab schools bypass the departments that currently administer them. So are lab school students going to even get a full high school curriculum? Lab schools are expensive, $150 million in 23 and 24, with costs that will be rising every year afterward, bleeding our local schools dry and damaging our economy by focusing on the large employers in each region and supplying their employees. Are we going to train our kids to grow up with aspirations to work at the company store or factory? They further disrupt and damage the teacher supply. Some of the applications talk about turning out teachers at the age of 20 with a truncated high school experience and 2 years of college. That does not create a high quality education system or a high quality teacher supply. Please do not take the next steps in establishing this program because it will save you from involvement in testimony later when this program is called to account. Thank you.
Thank you.
Okay. Michael Stemple, followed by Robert Rigby. Is Mr. Rigby here? Mr. Stemple. Zoe Aquino, followed by Ashley Elstad.
Hi, good morning.
Good morning.
Thank you so much. Hi, Zoe Aquino here from Humke Center. First, I want to appreciate your work to incorporate Asian American and Pacific Islander histories that Virginians wanted during your work session yesterday. It's an encouraging step forward, and we urge you to continue walking Virginia towards the right side of history with transparency and accountability. The papers in front of you are a copy of our most recent comments, our organizational sign-on letter with over 30 signatories preceding November, and our original petition from last summer supporting the expansion of AAPI content in Virginia's history SOLs preceding August. I share this to show the impact of your decisions yesterday and show you what's at stake for hundreds of thousands of Virginians moving forward. I share this also as a living history, a public record to memorialize the voice of Asian American communities in Virginia and the countless community members, partners, allies who showed up, spoke out, and took us to this moment over the last 8 months. I also want to appreciate the consideration you took with the concern over Dr. Tianchen Wu and finding an age-appropriate representative figure. I also want to affirm that Daniel Inouye is an agreeable substitution and also uplift a suggestion to replace Dr. Wu with Larry Eat Leong and pair him with Cesar Chavez. This would both cut down on new content and teach a historic collaboration that won change while representing AAPI, Latino, and labor histories. Please see my email for more information. Second, as we've stated over and over again, our communities in Virginia deserve to be understood in our histories, and teachers need to be at the forefront of our curriculums to appropriately facilitate that empathy and understanding for our students. In addition, Virginians need fair opportunities to be heard through our democratic process, especially those who have been historically excluded. While today is a positive step forward, it is only the first step. We got here through a grossly undemocratic process, and the current draft is still flawed and limited, and the scar of this attempt to whitewash our histories will not heal overnight. This is just the beginning of the work, and we at Humke Center urge you to continue listening to Virginians and proceed with transparency and accountability. And as always, my contact information is on the bottom of the sheet. Thank you.
Thank you. Ashley Elstad, followed by David Walrod. Good morning.
Good morning. Hello, my name is Ashley, she, they. I am from Humke Center and I am a graduate of Prince William County Schools. I wanted to begin by thanking the board for incorporating the comments of Asian American Virginians yesterday and giving them a place in the history and social science standards that we have been sending our written comments to and coming out and testifying for since September. I have been a substitute teacher in Prince William County since last school year, and in that time, my respect for educators has been elevated tenfold, so thank you all. I've witnessed what it looks like when teachers go above and beyond for their students, and the curriculum frameworks you provide should reflect their capacity as teachers and human beings. In this position, I have also experienced what it's like to be one of the role models students look up to. Representation is one of the reasons I became a substitute. So to have Asian students approach me and ask me about my background and light up because our history is something we share is affirming, because I didn't have anything like that. Diversity, whether it's in our educators or our standards of learning, is necessary. Besides fighting for the right to having my history and the history of other groups in Virginia, I am fighting for my sister. She's 10 and will be starting middle school in the fall. She's inquisitive to a frustrating degree, I'll add, and history is her favorite subject. I think I learned more from her than I did during my own time in school. This continues to be important to me because I keep thinking to how the standards and framework you implement after today will see her through the rest of her education. She has 7 more years with Prince William County, and she deserves to sit amongst her peers and learn about the important figures from American history, from Asian American history, because it's American history as well. But it's not just about what students deserve to know, it's what they need to know. Immigrants and refugees have fought hard throughout history to be here, and today they still do. So I will leave you all here today with this. These are no longer Governor Youngkin's SOLs. These are yours, and these are the Commonwealth's. They are the Asian, Indigenous, Black, Latinx, queer, trans, and cisgender women and men, gender nonconforming, and students, parents, and educators that have shown up today and will continue to show up so that you don't forget that this work is not over. Thank you.
David Walrod, followed by Jeffrey Coop.
Good morning, President Gecker, Superintendent Coons, members of the board. My name is David Walrod. I'm the parent of a 5th grader in Virginia Public Schools. I'm a teacher in Fairfax County Public Schools. I'm a doctoral student at George Mason University, and I'm the president of the Fairfax County Federation of Teachers. The changes that have been made to the standards represent an improvement. I appreciate the work that you did yesterday. I ask that you continue looking at the dramatic amount of feedback that you received. Over 80% of the feedback that was received at various public hearings were telling you changes needed to be made and the standards that were originally presented weren't good enough. A lot of progress got made yesterday, and I appreciate that. But I ask that as this board moves towards finalization, that we continue looking at the work that needs to be done to meet the feedback that you received from, again, hundreds of people. So I ask that you continue listening to the Virginia parents, Virginia teachers, Virginia historians. Thank you.
Thank you. Jeffrey Coop.
Good morning, Board. I'm here to speak on the history of social science standards as well. You've heard from me before, and I've submitted substantial comments. I'm not particularly fond of this version. It doesn't go far enough. And I want to talk about a few of my issues that I see. On guiding principles, I suggested that there be a guiding principle regarding truth. That really the curriculum should reflect inquiries into truth, and that these inquiries be open, and that they foster pluralism, and they encourage active citizenship among students to delve into the truth. I think these are educational aspirations more than creed and doctrine. I don't see in the skills any coverage of dispositions. So we would, I think, hope not only that students know about the good and the bad, but that they exercise moral inquiry. That inquiry go into the questions regarding history, whether it was okay to drop a bomb on Hiroshima, or were in fact lives saved by dropping the bomb on Hiroshima. These are not like good and bad issues. These are moral dilemmas of decision making that our students need to be able to know and to exercise. And so there needs to be some dispositional outcomes. I'm going to move to World History number 7, which 2.7, which asks students to explain the effects of decolonization. But there's no coverage of colonization, which was a huge historical event in terms of mercantilism and the growth of industrial Europe, the subjugation of peoples around the world, the extraction of resources. There's so much that we can tie to racism, to labor history, to issues that we face in the current day regarding Puerto Rico and how we acquired Puerto Rico from the Spanish. I don't think that these are settled issues. I think these are the effects of decolonization, colonization. We live with those vestiges today. These aren't like settled issues. And so with colonization and decolonization, we need a concept-driven curriculum, not fact-filled and event-filled. We can go through the names and dates and events, etc. But without these conceptual understandings of colonization, decolonization, I don't think that you can get to a rich curriculum. I'm looking forward to the framework that you all develop. I'm disappointed with what we've got now. Hopefully in the next phase, some of these issues will be addressed. But I think Virginians deserve better.
Thank you. All right. We had a number of people sign up this morning. I will say that a few of you have handwriting that is worse than mine, which says something, and so this may be a little difficult. John Jennings, followed by Emmanuel De Prima. I appreciate the clarity of your handwriting.
Oh, I'm happy to provide that. Thank you so much for allowing us to speak today. So I am testifying in support of the governor's proposed standards of education. So the governor, he has created a quote, best in the nation history and social science standards, which teach all the history, the good and the bad. And these prepare every graduate to be an informed member of our democracy and these communities. These standards meet that goal, and the governor is unapologetic about aiming for excellence. And as we've seen, the lowering of expectations has led to historic learning loss. I've seen that personally. I am a graduate of Fairfax County Public Schools, Fairfax High School in specific. So our Virginia experience, and this has proved that when we raise the bar for students in schools, they meet it. Virginians, we are proud Virginians, and we don't just meet the bar, we actually exceed the bar. And getting these standards right is a part of our effort to restore excellence to education. And something that I see in government, we all talk about the history standards, which are really important, but I delved like deep into the details of these standards. Something that I personally believe is really important is attention to detail, and the governor has really paid great attention to detail. He's actually required students to describe the differences between communism and a democratic nation, not just to understand the history about it, but to actually be able to go into depth and be able to speak one's own mind about communism and the differences of a democratic nation. And lastly, I went to the Fairfax Academy of the Arts, and I've seen that the arts is really overlooked in education. It's demeaned about, it's not talked about as much. And the governor actually not only acknowledged that it's a fact and what a lot of people care about, but he actually proposed analysis of it, analysis of art, music, and literature in over different time periods of U.S. history to understand changing culture. And we need to be a good society, a society that's very well-rounded. And these standards do that. They talk about math, raising the standards for education, history, and also the arts. And we're going to be a society that's going to move forward together. And I ask that you support these education standards. Thank you.
Emmanuel.
Good morning. My name is Manuel DiPrima. I'm a graduating senior at George Mason University. I just have a small comment to make about the standard number 4 of the new standards of learning. Definitely not the least important, but definitely a good cause to consider the historical events not to be omitted in student learning, especially when coming with point number 4 of the new SOL standards. Starting grade 1 in new standard of learning, qualified teachers and the updated SOL frequency will allow for more active assimilation of historical events in order to have more Virginian and American role models. As I most commonly say, show me the child 0 to 8, and I will show you the man or woman they will become once they're adults. What goes on through our students' classrooms early on is what they will go through the rest of their lives. And it is hence important to have American role models for students through grade 12. I personally felt that was lacking high school education, but the new standards will take care of that. And I'm very confident that students will learn about Virginia, America's triumphs, failures, and about the people and groups that changed history and have impacted our present. And I thank the board for their hard work and their time today. Thanks.
Thank you. Elmer Diaz. Elmer Diaz. Ivy Diaz.
Is that Maria Martin?
No, that one I could. There is a Maria Martin later on, but no, there's a Diaz.
Cover for the other person so I can go.
No, there is a Nancy with a completely unrecognizable last name. That would be you?
Anyone was reading these.
Yes, well.
Thank you. Good morning, Dr. Coons, and thank you for your time. Thanks for your service and for your care for our children.
And what
You may
is
not
your
hear that.
full
My
name?
name is Nancy Lucy.
Okay.
Thank you. And I'm actually really impressed with these young men from George Mason. They're the age of my son, and so I think you just have been fabulous, and ladies. So thank you for your time. My name is Nancy, and I'm a Raleigh, Virginia member and a former Miss Virginia, whose main duty was to meet with thousands of children during my tenure. Since that time, I have seen a tremendous degradation in the standards of learning. Raleigh, Virginia endorses the standards. Growing up in Colonial Williamsburg, I supported historical fundamentals. I support patriotism and I support Governor Youngkin's agenda to teach the full history, the good and the bad. Thank you.
Okay, Nicole, I might actually publish these just to see.
so
if-
sorry.
No.
I can do better.
No, it's all good.
Yes.
When I was in fifth grade, my fifth grade teacher told my mother that the only reason she didn't fail me in penmanship was because the rest of the report card was acceptable. So I appreciate the difficulty that you're operating
Well,
under
I
here.
really thought we were just signing in. I didn't know that was going to have to be read by another person. So I do apologize. I
That's
would be
all
mad
good.
at my son for that as well.
Yeah.
My name is Nicole Holland. I am with the Raleigh Virginia Leadership, and we do support your Board of Education hearings and the standards that are brought before you. I just want to say a little bit about, I am a product of Roanoke County Public Schools, and I'm a graduate of James Madison University, and I've also been a provisional licensed special ed teacher. My sister as well, who did receive her master's through those programs. So I just want to thank you for what you're doing, and thank you for the improvements that you've made to our education system and our curriculum. Thank you.
Thanks. Martha Muniz and Amanda. Thank you, Wayne Scott. That's what I was about to say.
She left. You can cross her.
Okay.
Hi, I'll make this very short. My name is Martha Muniz. I'm from Amelia, Virginia. I'm just here to support Governor Youngkin and endorse his standards of learning. It's that simple. Thank you very much for your time.
Thank you. Okay, now we have a single name that says Ruse. I've always wanted to meet somebody who only had one name, so
well.
this is a good day.
Yes, good morning.
Good
And
morning.
thank you for all the hard work that you all have been doing. And thank you for hosting the hearings and going from city to city across our Commonwealth. Thank you. My name is Ruse and I'm with Raleigh, Virginia. I'm here to endorse this latest draft of the history standards. As Governor Youngkin always says, we teach it all, the good, the bad, the ugly, but we teach it all. And I'm grateful for that. And we are here to endorse the history standards. Thank you.
All right, Bridget Culkin. At least try Bridget. Hi, good morning.
I'm Bridget Cuthbert. I'm from Petersburg, Virginia. I'm also a representative with Raleigh, Virginia. First of all, I want to echo Nancy's sentiments. I have young children, young adults, and I am very appreciative that this group of George Mason students came to speak and took the time because I know your schedules are busy. But we also as an organization endorse the governor's standards of learning and appreciate your hard work. And thank you.
Thank you. Maria Martin.
Hello, everyone. My name is Maria Martin. I have a pretty accent because I am originally from Bolivia, but I live in Prince William County for about 22 years. My children have attended the Prince William school system. And just want to remind all of you that have been elected and you are servants of the people. We should never forget that. I have run for office twice. I am running for the third time. And I want to keep that in mind, that when you are elected, you are serving the people. I am impressed with your face, ma'am. I don't know your name, but certainly I feel kind of dismissed when I was looking at your face, although you have such a pretty face. I also appreciate everyone that came today. It reminds me of a story in the Bible. The story of the Bible is the book of Nehemiah. It's a beautiful book. It's a historic book. If we don't have history, we will forget where we came from. History is like the birth certificate that each one of us get when we are born. And it's something that we don't want to forget. It's what makes us what we have today. What we see today is what has made us through the years. The good and the bad. The ugly and the things that you don't even want to talk about is what that's make us to this day. We have a responsibility to keep, and that is for future generations. We have to stop planning for 20 years, for 10 years. We have to start planning as our founder parents did. They did it for 200 years, for 300 years. But here we are looking with a very short forward. We are thinking in 10 years, doing even things for constructions, just saying, no, everything is going to change in 10 years. We have to think what promises we have for our children. Do we want to keep two genders? And I am not against anyone. I love everyone. But something that the Bible teaches is that he created male and female, all right? And we can love everybody else because love burns everything that comes before our principles as such. One more thing. I greatly appreciate the freedom of speech, of religion, of the press, and the God-given rights to life, liberty, and the pursuit of happiness, as somebody said before. Thank you so much, and thank you not for your service. This is a job that we all decide to do when we decide to run for office. Thank you.
Okay, Stephanie?
My apologies. I was writing open air, no clipboard.
No, that's okay.
Bad handwriting. Stephanie Farmer.
Thank you.
Hi, thank you. Thank you all so much for your time. I'd like to thank you, Governor Youngkin, for working to install a best-in-nation history and social studies standards. Our great state of Virginia is not only beautiful, but it is home to so much history. We are neither a perfect nation nor a perfect state, but we can strive to be better and do better using history as a catapult for excellence. I appreciate you strengthening the robust study of civics throughout all grades and notably emphasizing the importance of free enterprise to democracy and the importance of an unbiased press. May we continue to strive to live up to the ideals set forth by our founders. God bless you all, and thank you so much for your time.
Thank you. All right, that concludes the list of people who signed up. We passed by a couple people who may not have been here, when their name was called. Is there anybody else who would like to speak before the board? Please come on up.
Good morning, members of the Board of Education. My name is Terrell Fleming. I'm a parent and a proud product of public schools in the state of Virginia. I'm here to speak on behalf of myself, but also to think about the standards that you guys have been presented. I'm a little dismayed by the process that we have gone through to get to this point. As an original, probably a student in the state of Virginia when the standards originated, and then to see the process that yesterday you guys were going through. And as a social studies educator, knowing that the primary reason or point for a board typically is to focus on policy and not to focus on issues that you have hired out professionals, it is really sad to see that a process that was started over almost 2 years ago that culminated in August with a set of standards that included museum professionals, educators, parents, community members was disregarded because it was said to be too long. And so with that, the board asked for a decoupled version. And then the previous state superintendent of instruction decided that it was in the best interest to go behind closed doors and hire a consultant that disregarded the information that was done in August. And then when the information was presented in November, the previous superintendent of instruction tried to link the work that was done behind closed doors to the work that was done with all of the community members and partners. And then we get to this current draft of standards. And these current draft of standards, again, disregarded work that was done that we know and I know as a 12+ year history and social science educator are best practices. And instead, what are we finding ourselves here? We have found ourselves in the midst of standards that are not in the best interest of students, but have truly placed politics ahead of our students. And now we're faced with a set of standards that you have one group that says those standards are returning excellence to education. You have another group that says you have disregarded the process. And in the whole time, we have seen where the Board of Education, specifically DOE here, is not seen in the same light that it was even 10 months ago. And I implore you to think about the decision that you're going to make with these new set of standards, because my name will not be on them, but your name will be on them. Your name will represent what you feel is best in the state of Virginia. And like I said, one of the things that I think was horrible throughout this process is the lack of transparency. And I appreciate your transparency yesterday. But the fact that the previous superintendent and the process that they went through, including contacting groups such as Hillsdale College, who disparaged public school teachers, their president, or the State Department of Education for Louisiana, knowing that we have one of the top education systems in the country, is truly sad. And I hope as you think about what these standards should look like, that you remind yourself that Virginians should come first and not outside groups. Thank you.
Thank you. All right, anybody else? Come on. Good morning.
Good morning. I want to thank of you to be here. I'm Brazilian, as you see my accent. I live 33 years here in the United States. I support Governor Young changing things because it's beginning of change. United States is losing their place as a big country because our education is so behind another countries. I come from Brazil, and education here is much lower than any country in South America, Europe, Asian, and any place. And I think the first thing you need to do is change, and this is beginning with something. If nobody do something, we are going to lose things. I live here for 33 years, and the things are very different now. Thank you very much.
Could you give us your name?
Marsha Donovan.
Thank you.
Forgot
Thank
to
you very
say.
much. Thanks. Okay, last call. Anybody else who would like to take advantage of the board's public comment period? I can't see around that TV, but is anybody coming up? No. Okay, then we are going to close public comment. Thank everybody for their participation. We'll take a break in a few minutes, but let's go ahead and deal with the consent agenda. There's been a request to remove item F, which we will do. Is there a motion to approve items A through E on the consent agenda, or does anybody have anything else they'd like to remove?
So moved.
Second. Thank you. All in favor? Aye. Any opposed? Okay, I guess before we start into the matters, we will take a 10-minute break. We'll be back at 11. If staff during the interim could get clean copies printed of the history standards. Thank you very much. We'll see you all at 11. If you folks in the audience would do me a favor and, thank you so, wow, that works so well. I got to try that at home one day. All right, we're going to move to item F first. Ms. Sipka. Good morning.
Good morning.
I hope I didn't surprise you. I know the notes here say they wanted it after item G, but let's go ahead and get it done.
Okay.
All right, so this is the final review of proposal to approve only a year-to-year comparison of state assessment results. I understand that there was some concern from the field based upon what was published. I understand that what was published may not have been correct and that it has been corrected. Is that right?
Correct.
Okay. Dr. Siebert, you requested this be pulled. Do you have any other comments?
No, I appreciate the opportunity and really, I think the agenda item was updated to include the corrected version. But since it was updated, I thought it needed to come off consent and just have an opportunity. And I just want to thank staff for moving swiftly and catching the error and fixing it.
Okay. Anything else you'd like to say?
Well, if you don't mind, I would like to just show 2 slides so that it is very clear to the board members and very clear to the community of what this proposal is. So we are proposing year-to-year growth for grades 4 through 8. And that would be comparing the previous spring SOL test to the current year spring SOL test. So in this example, you can see that we would be, if a student was in grade 3 and took the grade 3 assessment in spring of 22, and that would be the SOL test or the VAP test, that score would be compared to the spring 23 test when the student took the grade 4 assessment. And then for grade 3 students are included in this methodology that we will be using this year. And so for grade 3, because that's the first year that SOL tests have been administered, there isn't a previous year's assessment. So for grade 3, we would be comparing the fall 2023 growth assessment score to the spring 2023 SOL test score.
Okay. Any questions?
Is there any questions?
Seeing none, I hope that clarifies everything. I appreciate the further work. Ms. Creasy? No, I'm sorry, you had questioning face. All right, I'm delighted to see that the Superintendent of Public Instruction has already been at work and recommends the board approve the proposal. So is there a motion to that effect?
So moved.
Thank you, Mr. Servant. Thank you, Dr. Siebert. All in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Any opposed?
Aye.
Oh, hi, Pam. Thank you. That carries. All right, let's move on then. Item. Oh, we did it at the beginning? Yep, did it at the beginning. That's okay. Item G, final review, I say that advisedly, of the proposed revised history and social science standards of learning. Where's the A team?
They just said they're coming.
Okay. Good morning.
Good morning.
I will say it is a delight to see you every 12 hours.
For me as well.
They've taught you well.
All right. Well, good morning, President Gecker, Dr. Mann, members of the board, and Dr. Coons. First, I would really like to thank you for your collaborative work during the work session yesterday. No, it was long, on Wednesday and bringing us one step closer to approved standards of learning for history and social science. Based on the board's work on Wednesday, the team has prepared a red line document, and there are about 8 or 9 areas that you all had us write and edit for, and we want to make sure that is fine with you. Staff will also, and I really want to emphasize this, we also ask for your permission to make any technical or clerical edits after approval, after you have approved the document. I do want to say on behalf of our team, Andrea, Brandy, Christine, and myself, thank you so much for your support over the past almost 2 years that you have provided for us. We know that it has been a very long process, and we truly, truly appreciate your feedback, your comments, everything. So at this time, I'm going to turn it back over to Dr. Coons, and she will let us know what our next steps are.
First, I just want to thank the staff. They have worked tirelessly since we adjourned yesterday after 7:45 to incorporate all of the changes that you worked through in your 6-hour marathon meeting yesterday. So obviously there needs to be a technical edit and some time to just do cleanup for those things. But we're hopeful that we worked very hard to make sure this represents the recommendations in the work session as a draft to move forward.
Okay. I would also, of course, like to echo my thanks to the team. We've talked privately, and so you guys understand how I feel about this. But for the public, as Dr. Coons just mentioned, this group has worked incredibly hard to produce a product, not just in the last, I didn't really consider yesterday the marathon meeting, with all due respect, since we've had those before, but we, it was a long enough meeting, and for y'all to turn this around overnight, we certainly appreciate, but also the work really going back to the beginning of this, more than a couple of years now of work on this project. So it is beginning to look like one of my home improvement projects, right? It just never seems to get done. But today may be the day. We're going to do this in a couple pieces at the request of some board members. Much like we did yesterday, we are going to start with the standards themselves, and then we'll come back to what we loosely call the preface. I think there may be one change in the standards, perhaps that ought to not be controversial, we hope. Are there any, we all have clean copies. Are there any changes that people want to make to the standards document themselves? That is, it begins on page 8, let us say, and rolls through the end.
Mr. President, may I suggest that it actually start with page 6 and 7 and go with page 8?
Oh, I'm sorry. Yeah, that's fine.
And explain page 8 is of a piece with page 6 and 7.
That's fair. Okay, so starting from page 6 all the way to the end, are there any proposed revisions?
Mr. President, I think the staff said they had 8 questions for us. Or you said there were 8 things you wanted us to check today?
Yes, we have a strike one, a hard copy.
Yeah, let's go ahead and do those then. Thank you, Ellen. I appreciate that.
The first one I'll bring your attention to is VS.3 on the page numbers may be off because you are looking at a clean copy in Virginia Studies.
Sorry, VS what?
VS.3.
Page 19.
pass this to the board members.
Okay.
And in particular, there's the area of the economic and geographic influences. We just want to make sure the language that we have there captures our conversation from yesterday.
Yeah, I'm okay with that.
We all give this.
Has everybody had a chance to take a look?
Yeah.
Everybody comfortable? Yeah.
Okay.
Thank you, Christania. What's next?
The next one in US 2.5, and this is under sixth grade. US 2.5. Thank you, Dr. Siebert. G, we want to make sure that we captured your intent. US 2.5 G. And I do apologize, I said 8 or 9, but I was counting all of the yellow highlights and some of them are just highlighting a letter and there's no question there.
Okay.
So fewer than 8 or 9.
It's much fewer. I'm actually getting ready to give you the last one.
Okay.
I thought you were apologizing that there were more than 8 or 9.
No.
I'm okay with G. Everybody have a chance to look at page 28, item G. Everybody okay? Mr. Hanson?
That's fine.
All right.
And then the last one, US 2.6 C. And again, we just want to make sure it captures the discussions from yesterday.
I'm sorry, one more time. I was still looking at the old one.
It's right under it, US 2.6 C as in cat.
Mr. President, I thought the document actually had underlined an extra phrase and the Allied invasion of Italy. Was that?
They added it in earlier.
Oh, it's for, okay,
It's
gotcha.
there, it's just
It's
reordered.
cleaner. Thank you.
Yep.
It'd be better to talk about the liberation instead of invasion. It'll-
Is that the will, Mr. Gecker, if you want to.
Invasion sounds like we're,
Allied invade.
I think that's how it's referred to, though. I'm not a historian, because I think, because by the time we entered, Mussolini had fell. It was, but I'm not, Dr. Brown, save us.
He's not talking about Italy, he's talking about
liberation.
Normandy. It says.
no, I'm talking about.
You're talking about Italy. I think it's referred to historically as the Allied invasion of Italy, but I may be mistaken about that.
I will make sure of it.
I'm fine with either
to
one.
make
It's just,
sure.
Invasion
the
of Normandy
phrasing
sounds
for-
wrong to me too on that same subject. I thought it was the liberation of Normandy. or the
I think
landing
liberation's
at
fine, but if the historians prefer invasion, I am not a
Battle
historian.
of,
Okay.
what's the prior?
Can you guys just make sure the final version has whatever the conventional term of art among historians
sir.
is?
I would prefer liberation if possible.
Oh, okay, and that was a staff edit that changed invasion of Normandy to battle, changed Battle of Normandy to invasion of
Invasion of
Normandy.
Italy.
Invasion, even though the US landing at Normandy.
Generally referred to as the invasion.
But students would still be learning about everything that happened after those first few days, right? Because it took a while for them.
I'm sorry, I didn't.
If we, with that wording, students would still be learning about the entire crusade, as Eisenhower called it, and not just the first few days, because it took them a while to get out of Normandy. Okay.
And the main thing that we did here for your clean copy was to make sure that they were in chronological order. And that's all I have for
Okay.
you all to check on.
Let's go. So once again, back to the board. Are there any other changes in?
It's impossible to know, Mr. President. We just received this, and to go through the 50 pages, I just think if there's edits or other things that aren't.
Yes, we will take care of
Yeah.
those clerical and technical edits.
All right. I'm going to do something shocking. Let's go ahead and maybe put this part of it to bed. Is there a motion to adopt as the board's standards, pages 6 through, and then we'll come back and do the forward. We're not eliminating that, 6 to 61.
So move.
Thank you.
Second.
All in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Aye. Any opposed?
Aye.
Okay, thank you. Was that an opposed, Pam, or was that a aye, we're with it?
Said aye.
Yeah, I know, but after I asked about opposed. Okay, thanks. Don't want any ambiguity in the record on this one. All right, let's go back now
Oh,
to,
no, that's just the motion to,
that's just to put this 6 to whatever it is to bed. And then we're going to
but
do
we
this.
just put the motion on the table. We didn't vote on it yet.
Oh, I thought we just voted.
Oh,
Yeah.
And Pam almost voted twice.
I misunderstood. All right, thank you. I didn't hear a discussion about it, and at some point I'd like to have an opportunity to comment on it.
When
We'll do that
when
later.
the whole package comes up, I figure we'll have all the time we want to talk.
Thank you.
How about that?
Thank
All right. So let's go back now to whatever we're calling it, the guiding principles document. Any proposed changes here?
So it was suggested that we had a conversation yesterday about the stain word associated with slavery, and if there was interest in having indelible added to that, that might perhaps allow for.
In other words, replace horrors, which we
Yes.
agreed to yesterday, with indelible stain, which is a phrase in more common usage and acceptable to Dr. Mann.
Can you give us a new term again?
Indelible.
Indelible stain.
Indelible stain.
We would take out
Horrors. Yeah, horror. Excuse me.
I would support that.
Any,
Same
any
here.
discontent with that?
No.
Okay, good. So that's done. Thank you for that. All right, Mr. Rotherham.
So the principles we've spent a lot of time on them. Should I offer my amendment and then describe it, Mr. President? Or should I describe it and then offer it, which you prefer?
Whichever you prefer.
All right, so I'll describe it real quickly. They weren't entirely in order, and so my amendment does a couple of things. It changes them, so it starts with students, then teachers, the department's role, which we can talk about because it's going to be enormous in supporting this. What we expect of teachers, and then parents, and teachers, parents, and students. So it changes that. It also puts in a little bit more about high support and high expectations. I apologize for that it's an amendment today, not yesterday, but this has been turning over. We've been having a lot of conversations. You all have it both blind copied electronically, and you should have printed copies in front of you. So I offer that as a substitution just for those two sections. So starting with the success of Virginia's 2022, although that needs to be 2023. Thank you. Down to the last bullet that starts with parents should have access.
This
It's
is
an
the
amendment in nature.
implementation bullets, not the principles bullet, just to be clear.
I'm sorry?
It's the implementation bullets, not the principles bullet, just to be clear. Page 5.
Page 5.
Yes. Yeah, I'm sorry. Yes, I'm sorry. It's the, yeah, exactly. Should I offer it and then we can discuss, or what do you prefer,
Yeah,
Mr. Gay?
let's go ahead and offer it.
Okay, so I move that on these two, on page 5 in the implementation, we substitute the paragraph and the bullet for what is there.
I hate to have you do this, but since not everybody in the audience has this, do you mind reading it?
Happy to.
Thank you.
Okay. The success of Virginia's 2023 history and social science standards depend on the sound judgment and strong preparation of teachers and informed engagement by parents and communities. The standards and state-developed curriculum frameworks will serve as guides for best-in-class teaching and learning, while the immense responsibility of defining curriculum and text used in classrooms across Virginia rests with local school boards. These standards require high support and high expectations. They should be implemented in the following ways. Students should be exposed to the facts of our past in a content-rich and engaging way, even when those facts are uncomfortable. Teachers, whether they are new to the profession or a veteran educator, should utilize these standards in their classrooms as a mechanism to support their content knowledge and the work they do each day in classrooms as they teach students across the Commonwealth. Every local school board has a responsibility to select and fully implement standards that are aligned with the core history and social science curricula for every grade level and course. The curriculum selected by local school boards should provide a level of guidance, consistency, high-quality instructional materials, and professional development so that teachers, especially less experienced teachers, are not required to develop materials on their own. The Virginia Department of Education will provide our teachers with excellent instructional tools for training. Will provide our teachers with excellent instructional tools and training so they will be able to teach all of our history in an objective, fair, empathetic, non-judgmental, and developmentally appropriate way. God, I'm sorry, I've forgotten how to talk today. Fair, empathetic, non-judgmental, and developmentally appropriate manner in accordance with Title IV and Title VI of the Civil Rights Act of 1964. Teachers should engage students in fact-based, non-ideological, and age-appropriate ways that do not imply students today are culpable for past events. Teachers should not intentionally expose students to embarrassment or disparagement or unreasonably restrict student access to varying points of view. Teachers, students, and parents should insist on dignity and respect for each other as part of civil society. Parents should have access to all instructional materials utilized in any Virginia public school. Division policies and practices should reflect this commitment. The end.
Any comments?
Yeah, I'd like to speak to it if I may.
Please.
I do think, I appreciate Mr. Rotherham's attempts to clean this section up. I do think many of your editorial suggestions, reordering, et cetera, do help clean it up. And I appreciate those. I also appreciate your attempt to wordsmith some language that I think gives offense, but I fundamentally don't think it's about wordsmithing, and therefore I continue to object to the language after appropriate ways in the
Third from the bottom.
sixth bullet, I believe it is. So I suggest that the sixth bullet be amended to read, teachers should engage students in fact-based, non-ideological, and age-appropriate ways, period. We should delete the language that says that do not imply students today are culpable for past events. And I'll talk in a minute more about why I think that should be deleted. But first, I want to point out that if my proposal prevails, what will remain is that language that teachers should engage students in fact-based, non-age-appropriate ways. There is terrific language in the bullet immediately above that that says our teachers should teach all of our history in an objective, fair, empathetic, non-judgmental, developmentally appropriate way. There's language immediately after that that says teachers should not intentionally expose students to embarrassment or disparagement or unreasonably restrict student access to varying points of view. There's language after that that teachers, students, and you've added, and parents, and I appreciate that, should insist on dignity and respect for each other as part of civil society. That collective language that would remain with the deletion I propose adequately meets the need of ensuring fair, non-judgmental, non-ideological presentations in our classes. My concern with the language that I'm proposing to delete is that it goes, there's a provenance here. There's a history to this history language, and it goes back to the myth that's arisen and been promoted deliberately across the country by a number of groups that teachers are routinely trying to indoctrinate students about Black history, that teachers are trying to teach students that they should feel guilty based on their race. And that is a myth There may be a random teacher here or there that's been on the wrong side of that divide, but it is in large part a myth. It has led to a national movement to pass laws restricting the teaching of racial history across the country. Those laws have prevailed in a number of states. They have failed in many. They would never pass the Virginia General Assembly. That is not who Virginia is. They didn't pass the South Carolina General Assembly because people recognize that our teachers should be teaching broad history and that about race, because there's no way we're going to move forward from the current racial dilemmas we face without understanding our past. You all know I know a lot about the history of Virginia's struggles with racial reconciliation because I've been a part of it since I was a child. It's been my father's life's work. I only recently learned about one piece of education right here where we sit, right down the hill behind us here at the Monroe Building, was where Richmond was in the 19th century, the heart of the slave trade outside of New Orleans. It was the biggest industry that our city grew from in the 19th century. I only learned about that as an adult. That made me assume some sense of responsibility. And that sense of responsibility that I feel learning from that history, that learning gave me, is somewhat enhanced because I'm a white person. And because, frankly, I have inherited literally money and privilege from slaveholding ancestors on my mother's side. I wish some teacher had taught me those concepts in school. But now if teachers teach those concepts as we have told them to do in the standards, and I want to talk separately about the standards, I'll save that. But I think we've done a strong job of injecting healthy guidance in the standards themselves on how we teach the history of race in this country. But if teachers teach those concepts and some parent complains, teachers potentially could get fired over exactly this language. They have in other states, Missouri, Tennessee, Texas, teachers and educators have gotten fired over teaching about the concept of white privilege in a high school contemporary issues class. Have gotten, and beyond that, almost more importantly, teachers have self-censored. There was a survey from the Rand Corporation that said something like 30%, well, it was 40+% of African-American teachers and 28%, something like that, of white teachers have changed their practices because of the pressures against teaching about African-American history that have arisen in recent years. And it's that they're not self-censoring because they were teaching something wrong before. I've heard directly from teachers that were forced by a friendly principal trying to keep them out of hot water to change Black History Month lessons that they've been teaching forever here in Virginia because of this movement. It's wrong, and it's taking us in the wrong direction. The Fordham Institute, who others have cited as the organization that grades history standards, the vice president of the Fordham Institute wrote a piece about our January standards and said that she would delete the language about immutable characteristics, responsibility for immutable characteristics, because it draws political fire. If we want to avoid politicization, we should leave this language out. The language, I do recognize that Mr. Rotherham has attempted to wordsmith it and that it's an improvement over the draft, but where it came from and where the spirit that it still speaks to is that teachers have to walk gingerly around anything that connects what happens today to the past. Well, what happens today is connected to the past. And if some student feels responsible, culpable for what happened in the past based on what they learn in a classroom, God bless them. And maybe that'll help us figure out how to move forward constructively. But for that reason, I cannot support this language with that do not apply imply students today are culpable for past events. And I know the language in itself may seem innocuous, but I go back to where I started with. The rest of this language is Virginia language. This language comes from literally model laws that have been promoted across the country. And I'm sure that's not Mr. Rotherham's attempt or intent or any of your intent, but the model laws that have been promoted across the country have been with the intent of discouraging the teaching of Black history. And they've won in some places and failed in some places. And the places they've won, they've had a significant impact on teachers and teaching in the classroom. And I can't support it.
Mr. President, if I may.
Mr. Sturdivant, yes.
I would support, I would not support the changes from Mr. Rotherham or Ms. Holton. I will support what was presented to us today without changes.
Okay. Dr. Mann.
What I appreciate, thank you, Mr. President, what I appreciate about what was shared by Mr. Rotherham, sort of the reorganization, I think the language, teachers should engage students in fact-based, non-ideological, and age-appropriate ways is solid. It is not subjective. Those things are easy to see and understand. I expressed concern yesterday about the use of the word unreasonable. I think that is highly subjective. And honestly, if the sentence ends at ways, I think we make the point that there is an expectation that as educators are engaging students in this content, that we're doing so in ways that is intended to engender understanding. And that's that. I think this additional statement really does run the risk of continuing to have fear in the classroom in terms of educators really understanding what they can and cannot teach, even though we are saying it's important that teachers teach the good and the bad of history. And we've tried to bring that forward in a very strong way with the revision of the standards. And so I really think incorporating language that has the potential to undermine that isn't helpful if you've introduced language that does get at fact-based, non-ideological, and age-appropriate. So I support the ending of the sentence at ways for that reason.
Anybody else?
Well, I just want to say, first of all, I appreciate both Ms. Holton's sentiments and also her willingness to spend a lot of time trying to figure out, where we could land on this is fantastic. And everybody's, I think we do need to put unreasonably, because this is professional judgment, and I think that matters. And this is not our language; this is NEA language, and I think it's good language. Because if we just say restrict student access to varying points of view, you can see the confusion that could set off in this climate. I think unreasonably signals to people we're expecting, competent, mature professionals to behave like competent, mature professionals. So I think that modifier is actually important in language like this. I hear what Ms. Holton says. We're not using this is Virginia language. This language, as far as I know, the non-NEA part hasn't appeared anywhere else. I don't know how. We're stepping up. As you said, this is a strong step forward in terms of the amount of content. I'm incredibly gratified by just the tremendous amount of content, both on recent history and how much better we're teaching history from the 19th and early 20th century in the civil rights movement. It's a tremendous shift forward. We need to talk about the support it's going to require to get that right. We'll get to that. But I think part of that is also making sure people know, left and right, this is not political. We're not going to be bringing a set of politics one way or another into the classroom. And I think if you read the plain letter of this, you can see this applies in general. This doesn't apply to one kind of kid or another kind of kid. And the Attorney General is representative is here. My understanding is this language no one could get fired over something like this. And we can ask the Attorney General's representative if we'd like clarification on that. But my understanding is we're not setting up a standard here that could be weaponized against a teacher that way. We're setting up an expectation for a high level of professional, competent teaching about difficult questions.
I would disagree with that, but that's
And
just,
well,
I'm just
Dr.
saying
Mann-
from my perspective,
Well,
words.
We will
And-
do
and
it if
she
you want to
might-
go into closed session, Andy.
There might
My
opine-
AG does not like to be asked questions in open session.
Somebody might opine that they
Right
can't
before
legally
lunch.
be fired based on this section. That's not my point. My
Yeah.
point is that teachers have been fired for teaching about concepts like white privilege. And that this is the spirit
Sure.
that a school board in a part of Virginia might use when a teacher teaches about the concept of white privilege, might well cite this concept in justifying a decision to fire a teacher. Whether or not that teacher would prevail in a lawsuit or not, the Attorney General could weigh in on. But I can cite you to the cases in Tennessee, Missouri, Texas,
But as you said,
elsewhere
well,
where it has happened.
the Tennessee teacher would run afoul of this because he refused to teach different viewpoints on a complicated question. He insisted there was only one way to think about a question. That's the problem.
Well,
with
we can argue
teach-
about the specifics of
But
those
I
cases.
don't think we can, because like there's 100,000 schools around this country. We can find lots of examples. We can find lots of examples of administrators who acted in vertebrate ways or inappropriate ways. We can also find lots of examples of where people do the right thing and engage on this. I just don't think the plain letter of this, I think this is what Virginia parents simply would expect of us. And I think the plain letter of this implies we're looking for a high standard of professionalism, which it'll be incumbent upon us to support with trainings and tools. And we make very clear in the first bullet, uncomfortableness or how people feel is not the standard here. This is about how we teach.
Mr. President, may I ask Mr. Rotherham a clarifying question?
He's willing to answer it, sure.
What does that phrase add that isn't already expressed adequately in the Virginia language in the bullet above and in the NEA language that you have proposed adding and in the bullet behind?
I think it puts it just in plain English. And part of this is these standards are, in my view, and others may disagree, they are a substantial shift for us as a Commonwealth. And it puts it in plain English, what we are doing, what we are not doing here. And I think that's important.
And those other bullets don't do that?
I think you can argue, I think objective, fair, empathetic, non-judgmental, those are all, but I think that, Title IV and Title VI of the Civil Rights Act, I do this professionally. I couldn't recite those to you. So I think it puts in absolutely plain English, and it's our own language for what our high expectations are for our teachers in teaching about complicated issues, the good and the bad, as we've discussed a number of times.
All right, we're going to do this in two steps, I think. First is Mr. Sturdivant indicated that he would not support a change in basically a swapping of the proposed amendment by Mr. Rotherham for what we went over yesterday. I'd like to get actually a motion. I will tell you, personally, I think the new ordering is better than yesterday, and we can discuss that last point next. But is there a motion to at least swap this in? I would suggest we look at bullet 3. I'm not sure we don't have curricula and standards mixed up. I don't think it's the responsibility of the locals to select and fully implement standards that are aligned with the curricula. I think it's their obligation to get curricula that are aligned with the standards.
Yes, Mr. President, I saw that language and it didn't make sense to me, but it was already in there. And so I
Yeah.
felt like I felt like the error of interpretation was probably mine, but I noticed that
Yeah, I've
same
been
thing.
chatting with the new superintendent.
Okay.
She sort of suggests maybe we want
I was
to.
loath to alter it because I didn't understand it, but it didn't make sense.
No, it did not. And I will tell you, just as a general matter, and I know this won't come out, but we make policy statements here that have really not been addressed in a policy format. For example, and I'm not suggesting I disagree with this, but the board has never really addressed the idea of parents should have access to instructional materials, and divisions should change policies to reflect that. That is, and the extent of that would be an interesting thing. I hesitate honestly to put stuff in documents that hasn't really been vetted and thought through, that implicates things past our purview, our jurisdiction. I'm confident that there's no sentiment to take it out, but if it were me alone, I would take it out because I think it goes, past what we ought to be doing in a preface to social studies standards. It really does warrant some discussion. Even you, I think, during the discussion yesterday, Mr. Rotherham indicated that we need to think about what all access really means.
Mr. President,
yes.
as you're working to
Uh,
figure out how we proceed, I'll just put the one more on the table, is that I would at some point like to make a motion to change the word restore
We'll
to
get there.
inspire.
Let's do this one first.
How about I'll make a motion on this amendment, and then if we get it, we can wordsmith off
Thank
of it. Otherwise, we can wordsmith off the other
Exactly,
one.
that's where I'm headed.
Okay, so I move the substitute amendment that we read to the public, the board members all have, that we substitute that one paragraph and those bullets in to replace the content that's there now.
Is there a second to that motion? And again, this will not be the last motion on this section necessarily, but it is to at least, so we're all working off the same source document. Is there a second to swap out what we discussed yesterday for this?
Second.
Okay. Any other discussion? All those in favor
So
say
if we
aye.
vote for this, we're going to still
We will still, I promise,
have
go
an
through.
opportunity to, okay.
We will
I vote
continue
yes,
to
gotcha.
discuss the other issue that you wanted to discuss, and there can be a separate motion on that. I just want to, conform the document essentially, okay? And again, if Mr. Sturdivant hadn't indicated opposition to it, I wouldn't worry about it, but I want to understand where we are so that even Mr. Sturdivant is working off, we're all working off the same page. Okay. We have a motion and a second. All in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Aye. That's fine. Okay, but now everybody understand it's the will of the board right now to substitute this piece in. Ms. Holton, do you have another motion you'd like to make?
I move that we delete the language in the sixth bullet as follows: that do not imply students today are culpable for past events, period.
Is there a second to that motion?
Second.
Okay. We've had a lot of discussion on it. Is there anybody else who needs to discuss this now?
Have a comment?
Sure, of course, yeah.
Ms. Rotherham, I'd just like to thank you for the time you put in. This was a huge point of conversation late last night when everybody was hungry and tired at the end of a very productive day. So I appreciate your efforts for this section. I do, and you have modified the language here, and I appreciate that.
Okay, we have a motion and a second. It is to remove that bit of language. All in favor signify by saying aye. Aye. Any opposed?
No.
Nay.
Okay, so that one loses 5-4. All right, is there some consensus that we can change bullet 3? I know it's not quite a technical error. It's a, functional error in the document. I'd like to make the motion or have somebody make a motion to change bullet 3 to actually align curricula with standards instead of the other way around.
So replacing the word curricula.
Well, no, I mean, you're flipping the sentence.
Yes,
Right,
so,
every
yeah.
school board has a responsibility to show curricula or core history that align with the standards, as opposed to standards that align with the curricula.
So moved that we switch
Right, that
those.
makes sense.
So
right?
yeah, so
I mean, this should be non-controversial.
standards
honestly.
modify social science and curricula comes after fully implemented.
Correct. Is there a second to that?
That's my motion.
Thank you, Mr. Hanson. All in favor or any discussion? Everybody understand what's going on here?
Yes.
Okay. Any discussion? No. All in favor? Aye.
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 And again, I apologize for that confusion. It's the
No,
second time in
it's
this
all
process
good.
I've taken something in the document and I will learn my
It's all
lesson.
good. All right. Ms. Holton, so where we are now, by the way, is the preface or the prefatory material has been amended with Mr. Rotherham's suggestion or amendment. And bullet 3 has been altered or will be altered with the help of staff to reflect the correct ordering there. Ms. Holton.
And we've made the indelible stain change by consensus. Is that
Yes.
right?
Well, I guess we ought to vote on that too. I'm sorry. I thought, let's take a vote on that. Yeah, but we can do indelible stain now since there seemed to be consensus around that. All right. There was a suggestion that we change the word horror to indelible stain with regard to slavery, et cetera. Is there a motion to make that change?
So the motion is from Dr. Mann, correct?
Well, I think it was now from Mr. Hanson.
Second.
Okay, any discussion on that? All in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Okay. Any other motions with regard to the document? This is the prefatory document.
I would like to make a motion that the word restore in the first sentence be changed to inspire. And we discussed this
Yeah.
at some length yesterday, and I won't repeat my arguments other than to say I think restore is
Okay, is there a second to
unnecessarily
that
disparate.
motion?
Second.
Thank you, Dr. Mann. Any other discussion? All right, all those in favor signify by saying aye. Aye. All those opposed?
Nay.
Nay.
Okay, that fails 5-4. And any other motions with regard to the document? No? That's it? All right, so is there a motion then to attach, if you will, the prefatory document to the standards? Okay, is there a second to that?
Second.
Thank you, Mr. Hanson. Any discussion on that? And then we'll take a vote on the whole thing. All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Aye. Opposed?
Nay.
Okay. And now, is there a motion to adopt what is now the attached prefatory language to the standards as the new, history and social science standards of learning for Virginia Public
Well, no, I
Schools?
thought we've already passed the standards. I don't think.
Well,
need
no,
another
now we
vote.
have the full doc.
So
I thought you wanted an opportunity to vote on all of it.
I would ask that we're done. We
That's
voted the
fine.
standards
If
in.
we have voted enough,
and
we're
There's
done.
been a vote on the preface.
It's okay with me. Everybody understand what happened here? We have voted, the preface got voted on a couple different times, but it has now been attached formally to the standards. We have already approved the standards. I'm not sure if congratulations is in order. One, yeah,
I think I'd like to have, I don't know if anybody else, but I'd like to just speak, share a few thoughts, a reflection of the process and a few words of appreciation. If we're not going to have discussion on.
yeah, no, I thought we would have it a little later, but we're going to
Okay,
have it
well,
now.
yeah.
No, let's do it now. Because we're done.
Let's do it. I want to thank everybody involved. And the fact, I don't know how late staff had to work last night on all the work from yesterday, but that's a few hours compared to what they've done along. A couple points of clarification. I do, from even comment this morning, I do believe that as of when we received these for first review, these became the board's standards. I believe these are the board standards. And so I think that's important. I think we've labored thoughtfully and collaboratively throughout this process, but especially yesterday. And I hope anybody who was willing to tune in and listen to the conversation that this group had yesterday, that it was collaborative, it was cordial, it was polite, it was respectful, and it demonstrated that we have listened, that we have listened for months. We have listened for months during public comment. We listened at our visits to the different parts of the Commonwealth, the amazing materials the staff compiled from those sessions. The materials we received, it has been a lot. We have listened, and this process has unfolded. One of the terms we used yesterday was that we now have adopted is that America is exceptional, but imperfect. And so I do think that the document we have is imperfect, because I think we live in an imperfect world. But this process has unfolded. Now, it is unfolded with fits and starts. We demonstrated yesterday that we've listened, that we've honored public comment, and I think at some points, I think this process has been called out, has kind of gone off the rails, and it's been wrestled back on. And it's been wrestled back on through the will of the board, but especially the Herculean work of the staff. And we've had some very robust discussions. We have built something together. We've built it together with our stakeholders. And if it were a car, I think the last little bit we've been kind of talking about some language in the owner's manual. And language is important. I'm not saying the language is important. That's why I respect the robust discussion. But yesterday didn't include all the recommendations that I supported that be included. It included some recommendation. We took on some that I just decided I was willing to accept. And I think that at the end of it, that is the process. But because some people don't understand that we cannot meet, that we do not meet, that we are very careful about our communications. A lot of people thought maybe we weren't listening because between meetings, the board isn't going to be able to talk about things. We have listened. We have honored. We had a lot of people today talk about how this is improved. And again, where there's some things I would like to have done, some things I still like to see tweaked. But I'm thankful for the process. And I think I'm very thankful for where we are.
Mr. President,
Mr. Sturtevant.
you mentioned, and I agree, that because we separated the votes with the preface and the standards, we should do a vote with them consolidated. So I just think it's appropriate that we vote on one piece versus two separate pieces. And that would,
Except Ms. Holton's point, I think, is correct. We attached the preface to the document. The document was passed. The preface was passed. I think it's all done.
even though they were passed individually, not as a whole.
They were attached. That was what made them whole. That was the motion. Honestly, I planned to do it the other way, but actually the way it came down with the attaching.
And then made
solved
whole.
that issue. Any other comments? Dr. Mann?
I appreciate Dr. Siebert's comments, and I think I would feel remiss if I didn't, add my gratitude to the staff that's been on this journey for a very long time, working through a lot to get us to this point. And it is clear that in the process of getting to a final product, compromises are made. And I think for my part, as I reflect on the experience and I think about, there will be future opportunities down the line for boards to go through the kind of thing that we experienced. And I think as I reflect on my time of service on the board, one of the things that I valued and appreciated so much is that our board has operated above the fray of politics. And I think that when I consider all that I heard this morning and all that I've read about and experienced on the ground and the work that I do while I'm not situated in a school, the work that we do is very much in support of our school. And I think about the challenges that our teachers are facing. It is my sincere hope that as we have to update standards down the line, this won't be the last time that boards have to contemplate that the process that has been an extraordinarily thoughtful approach to doing these things in the Commonwealth is something that we safeguard because the public trust and what the public feels about how things proceed matters. It is a very fragile democracy that we have here, and that when process gets violated in ways where there are certain voices that are elevated over others, and we don't really speak about that in plain language, people are watching. There were 397 or so people watching our deliberations last night. I went on YouTube just to appreciate how many views were, evident last evening. And I just hope that we can hold to that. Focusing on the issues that teachers are facing and not getting lost in short-term thinking is it's important. So the process matters, and I just hope going forward that those are things that are really taken to heart.
Anybody else have any comments that they'd like to make? Mr. Rotherham?
Yeah, I appreciate my colleagues' comments. I appreciate your kind words, Dr. Siebert. I mean, first of all, it's broad strokes. This is 12 years we get these kids, and there's this parlor game that's become very popular lately where you get to say all the things you didn't learn in school, and that's because you get 12 years, and presumably if you're interested in these things, you continue to learn. I think many people, as Ms. Holton said, like sort of modeled that. You continue to learn stuff throughout your life. You learn it through experiences. You learn it because you're continuing to be a reader and learn. And all we can do is give kids a framework so then they can go out and fill that framework in throughout their life as they learn. Because we get 12 years and we have a limited amount of time. So I completely agree. Are these standards perfect? No, they're not. There's no such thing as perfect standards, either in an absolute form or there'd be 9 different versions, which would be an even more complicated process than the one the one we just had. But they're very good. We said we wanted to have standards that were the best, top tier, and I think the experts will, when they go over these, will say that they are. That's a credit to a lot of work, my colleagues, the staff, and the people around Virginia. I want to talk about that in a moment. So, like, this isn't like a victory or anything, but I will say I do think it's a victory for content and a victory for elevating content. There is just an amazing amount of things. And if you look at these standards, like those are things an educated person, regardless of the path they choose in life, these are good things to know and to help you understand the world. Again, the good, the bad, all these things, the heroics of our story, the place we've fallen short. I think it really, I think it's a big victory for content, knowledge-based education. I'm extremely pleased about that. I also think it's a victory for the idea that we don't have to have endless debates about this. Yesterday's session was, I thought, remarkable. It was people coming together to talk about complicated issues in good faith, figure out how to parse these and get words on paper, which can, as we just discussed, can be a challenge to do. And I think it shows that you can teach the good and the bad. You can actually do these things without it turning into a 3-ring circus. And that's great. And I think these standards, look, if you are the kind of person who thinks that all of American history is simply just a litany of sins and bad things, you will be disappointed by these standards. Likewise, if you think all of American history is just a story of heroics, you're going to be disappointed too, because we hit a really good balance. The most inspiring part of this to me, though, I will say, was public comment. When we were out around the Commonwealth, people taking time out of their lives, they're busy to come and show up, whether they like the standards they didn't, they wanted improvements. That was tremendous. And you saw people for whom you could tell public speaking wasn't something that they, as you just saw a few minutes ago, we all sometimes struggle with it. It was something that they didn't necessarily, they weren't comfortable with, and yet they got up in front of crowded rooms and so forth. And that was truly inspiring. The slightly less inspiring part of this was there was so much confusion. There was misinformation. People are going to disagree, but there was a lot of stuff people were saying this isn't in there, and you could, like, a simple find and replace would have shown that it's actually in there. I think that created complication, created bad feelings. When you saw there was somebody who came before us and talked about, she was concerned we weren't going to teach about the Holocaust and how important that was to her parents, which of course we were going to, that something like that was never even on the table. And to see someone just in distress about that, simply because people are spinning up over politics, that was hard to watch. And I think we can, as Dr. Mann said, I think when we think we can aspire, we can aspire to do better. Just today, I mean, labor history, I felt like the stuff that organized labor shared at the hearings, like, it was in there, but it wasn't necessarily elevated clearly. And I think we did a good job yesterday of elevating more of that. And so forth. But like, I watched all those papers. I was like, a lot of trees just died needlessly, right? Because like that stuff was in there. There was a lot of theatrics that unnecessarily concerned people, and that's something where I think we can do better. And then finally, the still thing I want to close on. Now, it's hard to believe, and you guys aren't going to want to hear this, but the hard part actually starts now, right? Like, this is a big shift, and we're going to really have to support our teachers. The amount of content knowledge here, the number of things we have put in that frankly, people didn't necessarily encounter in school themselves, and they're going to have to learn. There's just a lot of work here, and that's going to be professional development, tools and training materials. And I think, we have some language in the front matter that talks about like high expectations and high support. And I just think like we should celebrate, as Ms. Holton said, these are strong, they're a step forward, but I think we should also like be humble about the task that's actually now in front of us in terms of making sure this is implemented as effectively as it can be. And then Dr. Coons, I think that's going to be, an enormous thing on your plate. So thank you all.
Ms. Holton.
I too would like to start and finish with thanks not only to the staff, but to the hundreds and literally thousands of folks who have engaged with you over this process over the last two plus years. I want to get to what the current standards are, and I want to agree with Mr. Rotherham that I do think that the product we've come up with is a decent one. The board draft is a good basis for going forward, but I do want to just express a moment of regret for that we were not able to go forward with the standard, the approach that the nonpartisan, longtime civil servants brought to us as a result of their collaboration with the cast of thousands across Virginia in August. That approach would have been much more inquiry-based. It would have included questions that would have helped guide an inquiry approach to history education, which I think would have been a much better way to go. That approach brilliantly addressed the challenge of depth and breadth. That's a constant challenge in teaching history education by passing the curriculum frameworks, proposing that we pass the curriculum frameworks along with the standards, and that we could assure folks we had depth and breadth both that ways. And you all gave us the right advice to combine those two. And when we made the decision in the fall to separate those out and to abandon that inquiry-based approach, and frankly, the staff was cut out, specifically and explicitly cut out of the conversation for months, specifically in the fall. Outside parties were brought in and created an entirely new draft, and the administration presented a draft in November that was deeply flawed and frankly deeply politicized. It cut world history, it cut Africa out of world history, it cut Asia out of world history, as you all recall. Martin Luther King, maybe that was a mistake, but Martin Luther King Day was out. It did cut back on labor history. It cut out Indigenous Peoples Day. I won't go through it all, but it was a deeply flawed draft that I think resulted from a politicization of the process that was unfortunate. With the board's guidance, the department came back with a better draft in January, and I now think the draft that we've adopted today is a much better draft than the January draft. We still don't have curriculum framework. God bless you all. We're going to have to work on that over the upcoming months. So we're 7 or 8 months behind where we would have been had we gone with the nonpartisan, long-time, highly respected staff approach. And we don't yet have curriculum framework. So effectively we'll be a year or more farther behind by the time we're done, and many more roads to cross. But hopefully with the hard work we've done here, it won't be too difficult going forward. These are no longer the Youngkin standards. Absolutely. These are the board's standards. Even though I would have preferred a different approach, I do think they are much improved, and I do think that sometimes the public is referring to earlier drafts. Mr. Rotherham's comment about the petitions that were brought today. Well, I'm not sure that the public knew what we were going to do because we weren't able to share it all until yesterday. But the draft that we adopted yesterday, in addition to the items we discussed, I invite the public to read through what we've now passed, because you will see hundreds of changes we made that weren't discussed because they were all in the draft and we all just agreed with them yesterday. But changes that did elevate labor history, changes that, along the way, we've made changes that restored Asia and Africa to world history in 3rd grade. We did yesterday specifically vote to restore Indigenous Peoples Day. We put back in language about chattel slavery, language I feel particularly passionate about, that we added language about the institution of redlining, the suppression of economic rights of African Americans in the 20th century, and specifically language about the resulting racial wealth gaps. I feel passionately about that because I think to understand where we are today, it's crucial that our students understand the Civil War did not end in 1865, that there was another 100 years of effectively continuing many of those policies in much of our country. And so we've made some very, very substantive changes. I think I said labor history. Oh, we've added much more robust language about our immigrant communities that are such a vibrant part of America today. We have added a lot of changes from the collaborative standards draft. Did we get everything right? No. Would it have been a better process and a better outcome had we stuck with the original approach? Yes. But we've gotten to a good point, and I think that the process that we've gone through, particularly in the last several months, with both public comment, but also incredibly hard work and respectful work on the board, and expressing of vigorous disagreements, and you know, oh my gosh, we've all learned a lot of history, working through line by line these 60-some pages individually and collectively. And done it in a way that I think models respectful civil disagreement and agreement that we would love to see in our students. So I thank my colleagues as well as staff, and with the really the only objections that I've raised in the front matter. I think we've gotten to a decent conclusion, and I thank my colleagues for helping us get there.
Anybody else?
Mr. President, I just would also like to thank the staff. Our first meeting with 5 of us and now 6, we were presented with the work that you had all have been working on for quite some time, and but it also was not perfect, and we were new, and I actually am very grateful for that this is a board product and not a product of people and things that, put a very good foundation before us. But I think that looking prospectively instead of retrospectively, it was a great framework for us, but it was also just as our country may not be perfect. The current group that we just was not perfect. Also, I would opine that the August version was not. I just still go back to the review of the Virginia 5C's content was not part of it. And then comments about rather than memorizing. So I think we got to a very good point building on the great work that had been done. It's been, a challenging series of events that have got us to where we are today, but I think we're in a very good spot. And I also just keep wanting to bring this back to where we are and why this is so important to us, and why it is important that this is the board's product that's coming out. And that, we were presented at the November meeting from Dr. Schneider at the Center for Education Sciences of where we are as a Commonwealth. And from 2017 to 2022, we are the last in the country in terms of, we've had a 13.6% decline in our grade 4 reading scores, worst in the nation. And we had a 12-point change in our math scores from 2017 to 2022. And so, and then on top of that, our SOL scores went from 80 in 2018 down to 54 in the middle of the pandemic. We've inched back up to 66%. But this is, and for our economically disadvantaged students, we're at 51% pass rate. So we have, what all of this is about, we talked a lot about process and other things, but this is about the kids. This is about helping them learn, helping them get out of this learning loss challenging environment that they've been in for the last 3 years, and helping us as a Commonwealth lift up to where we need to be. there are individual faces and lives behind every one of these statistics. And it is just tragic that half of our economically and educationally disadvantaged students are not passing our history and social science tests. And for us as a Commonwealth, these last 6 years to be worst in the nation. And a lot of this was because of what this board did several years ago to change the growth challenges of our math standards and other things. This is a time for excellence. This is a time for putting together our best foot forward, to put the best standards forward so that our teachers can teach our children, and our children can succeed and thrive and learn those things that will make them the best adults they can be in their lives ahead. So I just want to thank the staff. I want to thank everybody that we've heard from, but also this is a product of the board, and it's not just something that we were asked to rubber stamp when we got here. And so I really appreciate kind of the long and winding road that we've been on, but it's really, I think, got us to a very good place.
Anybody else?
Mr. President,
Ms. Creasy.
just to hopefully maybe bring this home. I too want to echo my thanks to the staff for all the work that they have done. But more importantly, I really want to thank the public who, it's doubling. The public who engaged with us in every corner of the Commonwealth, who gave us we got a lot of comments of, don't pass this, don't do these standards, do these standards. I was very much appreciative of those very specific comments that gave us guidelines of how best to change some of the wording to make it better than it was. And so I just want to say, particularly to some of you that I see in the room today that have been with us in different places around the Commonwealth that provided us those very specific comments, thank you for that. And please do go dig deeply into this document and see where you in particular affected change. I really hope that you do that and take that opportunity, because we truly appreciated the time that you took to make those very specific comments. And then finally, I always like to think about something that I learned about this process. So as we move forward, what do we do next time? How can we make it better? I do think that there were a lot of questions out there that could have been answered by having at least a guiding document to a curriculum framework that could have given the public a little bit more understanding of how a curriculum framework document would dive deeper into some of the broad context that we were giving within the standards document. One of our last speakers was talking about those things that I really do feel like is going to be in the curriculum framework, but we can't say that for sure because we don't have those documents to show the public. So I think moving forward, it perhaps would behoove us to think, how can we drive documents more side by side to better accommodate some of the comments that we do get that are more specific than our broader standard. And that's all I have to finish this, hopefully, comment section with.
Anybody else? All right, I had probably an hour and a half I wanted to say, Christania, but we've been doing this a long time. So once again, thank you guys so much for what you've done. I would adopt Mrs. Holton's comments pretty much verbatim in terms of the process piece. I've been sitting here in the center for close to 6 years. I'll be gone in a couple months, but the commitment to the institution of the board matters as we go forward, and process ends up mattering in how we get results. And I'll give you a quick example with regard even to the history standards. Under Governor Northam, they formed the African American History Education Commission. And the African American History Education Commission came back to this board with a series of things that the administration very much wanted us to amend the standards to include. I don't know if you all remember this, but you know what I'm talking about. And, I made the decision then, and I would make it again today, that We have a process about how we revise our standards, and the process has yielded good results over a long period of time. And to deviate from the process to accommodate a short-term goal was not appropriate. And this board stayed the course, and we did not make changes to our standards. I look at what happened here, and I know I used a hijack word yesterday, which got a reaction, but we were rolling through a process, and it was clearly a board-directed process. It became very much a Department of Ed process and administration process for a period of time. And now, fortunately, it's come back to be a board process again. I hope as you guys go forward, and most of you, except I guess Tammy, have got terms that extend beyond June. Oh, and Pam, I'm sorry, and Pam. It's easy to reach for quick wins. But at the end of the day, what we're looking for, and I'm happy Mr. Hanson mentioned it because it's the first time I've heard it today, we're looking for what's best for our kids. And sometimes it takes a little while to sort through what's really best for the kids. And as I said, I think the processes we've had in place have worked. And I hope you guys, as you go forward, continue down the path of sort of the business as usual, the regular order of business instead of the, what we saw with regard to these standards. There's no reason that this had to become as controversial as it became. That having been said, I am looking forward as opposed to back. And, I'm comfortable that the standards, will meet the needs of Virginia's children. As Andy said, are they perfect? Likely, probably not. But I think, it goes a long way to doing what we need to do. I will be particularly watching for what comes out in curriculum framework, because as you know, the last time through, we were going to combine curriculum framework and the standards. We're adopting the standards again in advance of the framework. I hope that the framework fills out those things, that we decided not to put in the standards because of the assessment issues. So you guys are the best. Thank you. And I think we're going to move on to the next item.
Thank you.
Kristania, do you want to stay up there for a while? or have you had enough today?
Chairman Gecker, I think they might want to take a nap.
Okay. Okay, final review is item H of adoption of special provisions to